In the 66-kilogram division, please welcome Deandre Corbe.
I was gonna run at him, knee cut through him, where I hit him with a leg drag. I'll literally do that left and right until I got through. People think that I wasn't getting pieced up by blue belts. I was getting pieced up by blue belts. I'm a black belt already. Everything I was doing before was wrong. That can't be true. Right? We call it the kids team. They'll murder you. Literally, they'll murder you. You can't maintain conditions. You need to work on your capacity. So we play a continuous game. I'll find solutions. I'll do anything I can. I don't think they really understand. Sometimes they can't understand because they don't have that change in perspective yet. How come I can't do it anymore, man? The magnitude of gratefulness I have towards them. Everybody's watching this video. You could come through, come to standard. No, you don't have to pay nothing. Well, that's me, man. It's me.
8 months ago, I moved across the country to work on the most exciting project of my career thus far. A video distilling thousands of pages of science into a single, groundbreaking hour that unpacks and reconstructs a revolutionary understanding of movement in a way so clear and engaging, even your grandma could get it. Throughout this project, I've had the pleasure of training with someone who has truly impressed me through his actions, words, and perspective, Deandre Corbe. And in April, we finally got to sit down for an in-depth interview. You may know Dee from his recent win at West Coast Trials. Dee is first and foremost an athlete, a grappler, and a man on a mission. But many of even the most incredible athletes don't have a lot of valuable information to share. Dee is different, and he's different in a number of notable ways. He's introspective, intentional, intelligent, and wise beyond his years. While he uses everyday language in this interview and avoids a lot of scientific terminology, don't underestimate the depth of his knowledge. He's well versed in the foundational science behind his training and has developed a number of very impressive evidence-backed protocols to optimize his performance through years of tinkering, refinement, practice, and study. But the craziest part of Dee's story isn't his 15 years of martial arts, or how he went from getting submitted by blue belts to practically untouchable in just 4 years. The crazy part is that he did it while also being a full-time data analyst for the Navy. Dee is probably the most disciplined athlete I've ever met, and I'm excited for you to hear from him in his first long-form interview. He's even going to teach you how to functionally use this new approach, ecological dynamics, to learn his signature rear triangle. I think there's something to learn here for anyone pursuing mastery in their own domain. Let's get started with, how do you start martial arts? Like, what was that journey like?
Right into it?
Yeah.
Into it like that?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. So I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Grew up there, went through school there. And I started, my first introduction to martial arts was at a place called Lynx Academy. And I started with Muay Thai. So my background is in striking first.
Right.
Then, I trained, I was about, I think 11 years old then. I trained for a couple of years, did a couple exhibition matches.
Okay. Wow.
What they call smokers.
Yeah.
There's no winner. And I did that all throughout into early high school. But around 2 years into my training, I did Muay Thai concurrently with Jiu-Jitsu. And then I was competing in that too. So I started Jiu-Jitsu when I was about 13 years old. My original instructor, Nestor Bayat he runs Coastal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Virginia Beach now. I started when I was 13, and, I was kind of doing, competing in Muay Thai, competing in Jiu-Jitsu at the same time. And it just felt like, one thing I noticed, even when I win a Muay Thai fight or a Muay Thai match, the worst thing probably was a Muay Thai tournament.
Sure.
Even when you win, you're pretty banged up.
Sure.
And I didn't really that was kind of wearing on me. It was
sure.
You know what? This jiu-jitsu thing is pretty fun.
Right.
And even when I win matches, I don't feel like I'm dead. Right? That later changes, but that's how I got started. That's my introduction to martial arts, and I guess you could also include, it's not really considered martial arts in America, but right around the time I started doing jiu-jitsu, I started wrestling as well.
Oh, nice.
So I did that. We all kind of overlapping each other.
Yeah.
And I, after I graduated high school, just focused on doing jiu-jitsu, competing in the gi and traveling, competing as much as I could. Yeah.
Was there a reason you started Muay Thai and like?
No, man. That's funny, man. There was the place I was training at, right? We lived in the area for a long time. We passed by it, and my dad used to be like, he's like, yo, you should go and learn how to fight. And I was like, dude, that's that karate shit, man. I don't want none of that shit. And it was like, and it's funny. It was the way I was actually introduced is that the gym I originally trained at, they would hold birthday parties. Like you could have like reserved time for the gym to have the kid's birthday party. My friend actually went there, and I went to his birthday party, and I started hitting pads, started hitting the bag, and they were like, man, you should join. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And then this where it started, man. It was funny how I was actually introduced. I had no intention of doing anything like anything like that.
Right.
I just was invited to a birthday party, and that's how it all happened. And now I'm talking to you.
Sure.
This is crazy.
Sure.
Yeah.
When did Gavin start like joining in?
So Gav, he literally same day. We did everything starting the same
birthday party?
Same birthday party, because we were family friends. Like, yo, let's do it. Right here, I'll disband this comment one, bro. Comment one. We are not twins. We're not fucking twins. Like,
sure.
Gavin and I 4 years apart. I'm older.
4 years?
Yeah, actually 3 years and 364 days apart. Our birthdays are literally a day apart, but I'm older by about 4 years. So Gavin's the younger brother. I'm the older brother for the grappling fans out there.
Sure.
We're not twins. You know, I just look young. But we started the same day, and then we started jiu-jitsu the same day as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've been training the same amount of time for sure.
Right.
Yeah. I think I started when I was 13, and he was 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're 28 now, and 28. He's 24?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a big gap.
Years. Yeah, so it was actually cool because, you know, we never except for elementary school, we never were really in the same school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like as soon as I got done with like some major milestone in life, he was kind of entering that, and it was kind of helped him along the way. But that just gave him some room to try to outdo me in whatever he did.
Sure.
For example, is like I wrestled all throughout high school.
Right.
And, I was all right, but the best I did was 4th in the state, right?
Sure.
And Gavin goes on to be a 3-time finalist and a 1-time state champion.
Yeah.
It's like, there you go. And then now we're here.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, same. We started same day. Started same exact day. Everything. His martial arts start and his start of his career, jiu-jitsu, all the same day. Because he was kind of like tag along.
Yeah.
It's like I did it. Like, okay, I'll join too. Gavin's like that kind of guy. And
sure.
Like, go with the flow.
Yeah.
Chill, dude.
Yeah. When did you guys start like training, like you and him together a lot?
That's a good one. That's actually a good question. So until Gavin got into, it was really not until he got into like the 11th grade, and I was already like my 2nd or 3rd year in college, that we actually started training together, because we were significantly, there was a significant size difference.
Right.
So by the time Gavin was a junior in high school, what he's like 16, 17, he was already like, at this time we're both probably like 130 to 140 pounds. And then we were same size, same
Got
height.
it.
I already stopped growing. He was still growing, caught up. But early on, we never trained with each other. We never did, because he was like a lot smaller.
Sure.
And, he was in the kids class when I was in the adult class, and it was just like, it never happened until like he got like a little bigger. He had a growth spurt, and then we were at the same size. And then from there, we started getting, what we've noticed is our training really started progressing, because 1, you get that brother dynamic, and 2, same size. It's like you're fighting yourself, basically.
Sure.
Obviously, he fights a little different.
Sure.
He competes a little different than I do, but in terms of size and experience, it was like exactly the same.
Right.
So, and people comment about that. Like you see a lot of brothers in grappling,
Sure.
and they tend to be pretty skilled because
Right.
there's something that having a brother has something to do with that because it's cheat code for skill development, basically. Yeah.
I always assumed it was just like, if you're in it with your brother, like you guys can just fucking practice all the time.
Right.
Was it like that for you guys? Were you guys training outside of the gym or?
So we actually never, other than strength and conditioning, we never trained jujitsu at home. We reserved like just training the skill for the gym. And at the time, we were like, before we learned about this approach, we would do our drilling in the gym. And what the cool thing about my original instructor Nestor, he saw that we were pretty dedicated, and we wanted to really try to compete on the highest level.
Right.
So he gave us key. And,
Nice.
And so what we would do, we would go in the morning before school, unlock the door, and get our training session in, and then leave, go to school, and then do it again in the afternoon.
Wow.
So that was what we were doing. But yeah, it was once he got big enough, it was really beneficial for my development.
Right.
Yeah.
How long were you guys doing that for?
So for the morning training session and stuff, we're doing that for like a good. So I've been training right now a total of 15 years. I've been at Standard for about 4, and then until Gavin became my main training partner, we were kind of training for like 4 or 5 years. So we did like 5 or 6 years of just doing that morning like double 2 days. Yeah. And the cool thing was like I was living at home, and I was still in school. I was going to the college I was going to. I didn't have to move there.
Nice.
So I still trained full time.
Sure.
And then,
double days. Yeah.
Yeah. So we the cool thing about having the key was like we schedule our own training. The only downside was like me and Gavin were the only ones. We were kind of just training with each other.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of variability in the bodies.
Sure.
Eventually, we started like some people like, hey, can I come in with you guys? And and we would welcome everybody, but a lot of those it was very transient, and everybody comes in.
Sure.
Stuff gets in the way.
Stay for a few weeks.
Yeah, but the cool thing was I always had Gav.
Right.
It was good with the variability, but baseline I always had Gavin.
Right.
So it was I'm grateful for that, and blessed in that sense. But
sure.
I always had a training partner as opposed to like, you don't have to. I never had to call my friends. Hey, we're training today.
Right.
And they'll be like, yeah. And 10 minutes, like, nah, man, I'm not
sure.
Like that has happened before.
Right.
With Gav, and he will tell you this story verbatim. He would be sleeping, so we would get up real early, like because his school started at 7,
right? And
our gym was about 10-15 minutes away, so we had to get an hour session in. We would be in the gym around 5:15, 5:30, and then do an hour session in, and then you gotta drive him to school. So we'll be up like 4:45.
Wow.
At the time we were training the gi, our gis will be laid out. I woke up, no alarm. I was ready to go. I was excited to go.
Yeah.
Gavin's sleeping, and I knock on his door and like, yo, let's go. You got 5 minutes to get in the car and let's ride.
Yeah.
And we did that for like 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And then we did our training in the afternoon. But Gavin, you ask Gavin if Gavin's ever in a position to have a conversation with you, he'll tell you the same exact thing.
Sure.
Probably from a different perspective because he was the one being woken up.
Yeah.
He would hear that knock on his bedroom door at 4:45, and we're riding.
Yeah, it still takes some willpower to like,
absolutely. And then he eventually got used to it, and then it was just normal day for us. And we attributed our early stages just grinding like that, just like one, it was the constraint of having to go to school.
Right.
We never skipped out on that. We just worked around it. Like I do now.
Right.
We have full-time jobs. We work around it. Right. Yeah.
What made you like want to keep pushing that hard? Like especially like that early, right? Like, or maybe even earlier than that.
Dude, man, I don't know. I think I was the way that I operate, and I mean, this is only a story I'm telling
Sure.
myself, but like the way I see myself operating versus the way Gavin operates, I think I've been like this ever since. I don't know why. It was, I just liked it. I just liked it, and it wasn't really. It was never like an obligation. It was never it was always a luxury.
Right.
So it was like, so it wasn't really hard for me to get up early in the morning, and I still do it today.
Right.
Like, you know, it's like it was never really hard for me to get up and because ever since I remember my first day I did jiu-jitsu, like, man, this is pretty sick, you know.
Yeah.
And in school I was surrounded by really good people.
Right.
So it was like, and they gave me the freedom to explore like whatever this practice is, and I was like, all right, why not get up and
Sure.
and go to the gym if I have the time and opportunity.
Right.
And it's like, so I did, you know, but I don't know why. It was like, it just felt, for me, it just felt good. And it still feels good. You understand, in my recent years, there's been some fucking harder times.
Sure.
Because, you know, we're pushing hard.
Right.
But I don't know, man. I've always had this, you know, the idea of daily training, you know, daily training, and it was never I wouldn't even say it was pushing hard. It was like,
right.
It was just
doing what we
something
can.
I liked, right? Like if you like something, it's easy to do it.
Sure.
I guess. But obviously in the doing of the craft, there's times that are hard and like sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's very stressful. But getting up and going to the training was never like a hard thing for me to do.
Right.
You know? And then maybe it was hard for Gavin. You have to ask him, but he
kept doing it.
He put some resistance at first, but then he's like kind of just kept doing it.
Right.
And you know, you've trained with Gavin.
Yeah.
Fucking hard to deal with. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. What because a lot of people would describe training in the same way. You know, yeah, it's something I like, right?
Right.
And you know, the moment they have a job or they're going to school,
right?
You know, they're going 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
Right? And they describe it the same way you did.
Yeah.
Right. And so it takes to me, and I think to most people, it takes a completely different magnitude of motivation, and maybe we could call it discipline.
Right.
To be like, yeah, I want to do this, so I'm gonna wake up at 4:45, go train for an hour, go back to school, and then come train again.
Right.
Right. And what to you makes that difference?
Let me try to. I don't know, man. It's it depends on how important it is to you.
Sure.
You always prioritize. Let's say I have school, right?
Right.
You know, obviously we got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
As a response, you got to get through school. You know, some people have different views on that. How I was in the environment I was growing up, you got to do it, right?
Right.
So what do? You start looking at your day and you say, all right, I really want to do jiu-jitsu. I like it, and it's not hard for me to do it. Hard as in it's not. There's not a lot of I could wake up early. It was not very, you know. It was delight. It was enjoyable for me to go.
Right.
It didn't really matter. It was 4:45 in the morning.
Sure.
It was just I guess you just gotta prioritize it and make it important. You know what I'm saying? It was for me. I liked it and it was important to me. So I found ways to do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny is as I was growing up, man, I had a lot. It was even from some of my closest teammates and some of my the instructors I was, you know, and the investors always supported me.
Right.
I never heard this from him, but there were some of the older black belts who were like, yeah, man, just wait until you get to college.
Yeah, you always
I was trained
wait till you get a real job.
Yeah, I was training to them it was I was training
to burn out.
Crazy.
Right.
And to me it's okay, yeah, they're afraid of burnout, but then this is where I started exploring proper nutrition, sleeping. I learned this all myself, and I was very curious because I wanted to continue to train, right? because I liked it. So I learned about all these things, whether they were right or not. I didn't care. I would try it and then take some anecdotal data and say, oh, this felt good, you know. And then I think that helped with my longevity on the mat,
right?
Even with a high training volume, right? But back to what I was saying is like I got a lot of flack, like wait until you get to college when the classes get harder, blah blah blah, some shit like that. I said, okay, I'll like how I did. I'll work around and make sure I get my training in. Like, oh, wait until you get a real job, you know. I'll work around it. And this crazy thing is, one of them was like, wait until you get a girlfriend, right?
Sure.
Wait until you get a girlfriend. That's like the real thing that people say. Like the girlfriend will take you away from training, and we have lost teammates forever. Rest in peace to them, bro. Like they never came back, or really, but people blame it. Their teammates, they joke around, like, oh, the girl, man, he got out. But like, you know what's crazy? High school, college, job, girlfriend. I'm engaged now. Right. It was literally, I've gotten better in those things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you really cared about jiu-jitsu, you would see life, you would see ways to make sure it's a part of your life.
Right.
You know? And that I guess that informed all my decisions going on. Like, all right, when I pick my college class, okay, I get all my college classes, but make sure I find ways. Can I make ways to get training in? Same thing with the job. You know, if I gotta work at 7, we're gonna do the same thing we did in high school. We're gonna train in the morning, get after work, and the cool thing about work, you had no homework. You know, after school, you had no homework. You had to just train all the thing. And then, the girl part, right? You're just picking the wrong girl, bro. You guys are picking the wrong girl. You know what I mean? I'm saying, or guy, if you
sure.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like
I feel the same way. Me and Will, we're training together all the time. You know.
What I'm saying, like, and what happens is because it's so important to me, jiu-jitsu and grappling was so important to me. Everything around me, it had to deal with that.
Right.
So again, it was never hard. It was never hard to like get to training. It was always like, let's get to training. You know, that's how it is. Yeah. You know, but it was I attribute that to having great people around me. It's like that always supported my training. They always made sure I was taken care of, and then if I needed anything or a mat space, I always had that. And then not to mention my brother. Again, that makes a big difference because I always have a training partner. You know? It's like I'm just super lucky. And if you look at it like that way, it's like, man, I was supposed to build skill because I had so much available time to train.
The environment afforded it.
Exactly, right? I had so much available time to train, but a part of that too, I won't discount. I won't say it's like just completely love. Like you gotta have to look at what you got. If it's really important, keep it important. Right. And find ways to get it. You know, find ways to get your training in. You know, but I remember I would hear a lot of that, like just wait until this. Wait until that.
I hear that all the time, man.
I was like, I'm like, that's you, bro. It's not me, dog.
Was there ever a time that was hard for you to like get to training or organize things for training, or?
I mean, especially in those times where you have like a major, like going to college, transition, it just takes some time. And this, when I say time, I'm not talking about on the mat. I'm talking about just organizing like your day. Sure. To find it in. So it was like during those times of transition, it was definitely hard because you had to calibrate, right? Right. Calibrate to the new, the new schedule. You had to calibrate to the external stressors away from the mat. You know what I'm saying? Like the work stressors. Right. The school stressors if you're in college. It was like, but if you kind of just took some time, sat down, and looked at your day, you say, all right, I know you anticipate certain things like finals week in college. You know this is gonna be. How are you gonna get it? Where are you gonna study? How are you gonna get your studying? How are you gonna make sure you're fulfilling those conditions? Yeah. And how can I still fulfill the condition of training every day? You know? Some days some days you can't escape the fact that you cannot train this day. Right. But as long as but it's not derailing me from getting away from jiu-jitsu completely for like months and months at a time. You know, it's like if you look at your day, you just find ways to get it in. Whether, you know, over my career, my training volume per week has changed, obviously, but you know, I've always had the intention of trying to progress. I think that's the most important thing.
Right.
What with the volume that you're given, and based on the other constraints on your life, as long as you have the intention of trying to develop skill, I think that allows you to literally self-organize how I'm gonna how I'm gonna set up my day, my week, and my month, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there were times that were hard, and it's usually when it was transition. Like when I moved here I lived my whole life in Virginia Beach, and I moved here, new job, you know, first time away from home, living. Yeah, it was definitely hard. It was definitely hard. I had to get used to it, but you're not gonna, during those times that were hard, you're not gonna get used to it by not training.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So you gotta bite down a little bit, and then that's where like in the recent years, like, and especially when you're trying to compete at the highest level, you start feeling that, and it starts building up on you, and you know, and you have to just again reassess, you know, re-educate yourself on like the things that like going to keep you on the mat longer: sleep, nutrition, you know, meditation, whatever, right? That whole side of things. You explore that. You explore a bunch of things just for the intention of trying to get skilled. And this is the thing I like, so that's how it happened, you know. But yeah, sure. There were hard times to get to training, and there will be more hard times to get to training. It's just, you know, just understand that it's transient, and you'll calibrate.
Sure.
If it's important to you. You know what I'm saying?
How do you get to standard?
How I got here?
Yeah.
So that was actually a good lead in the previous question. So again, I just to reiterate, I was not born, but I was pretty much grew up in Virginia Beach. I got my black belt in Virginia under the same instructor, and I competed in the gi up until 2020, January. The 2020 Europeans was my last gi tournament. And then we all know what happened in 2020, right?
Sure.
It was, COVID, everything kind of shut down, which looking back at it was actually a good thing because it gave a lot of people time. There's a lot of dead time, and I used that to make moves. But how I got here was I started dating a student here. Won't say the name for respect. Right?
Okay.
Not because I'm hiding it, just for respect.
Okay.
But and everybody that's from Standard is gonna know who it is.
Yeah, sure.
But the people that are not from Standard, they could figure it out, right?
Sure.
But
the one with the big rock. On
yeah,
the big
exactly.
rock.
Yeah. We're engaged now. But so we started dating like 2019, and I was still living back home. And so we were kind of doing the distance thing. I would come up here on the weekends, right? So it's about a 3-hour drive from Virginia Beach. I would come here, I would train in Virginia Beach all week, come up here, and just spend the weekends with her. And it was, you know, right around COVID time, I started getting up here. And initially, because COVID, there's some uncertainty there. I didn't train right away. I just literally sat on the couch and watched, and I noticed that they were doing something different. Greg was doing something different, and I was like, I just took notes. I just took a bunch of notes, and then eventually, when we realized if I'm spending time with up here every weekend with a student that's already training on here, might as well let him train. So I started training, and that's how it started. So I'll come up here every weekend. I literally never missed unless I had like some sort of family obligation or work obligation. I literally never missed. I would make the drive on Friday after work, get here Friday night for open mat, and train Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then drive back 3 hours, 4 hours to Virginia Beach to go back to that's where I live still. But every weekend I would learn more about the approach. One, not even learn about it, I started developing relationships with everybody on the team. Like, I would see them every week. You know, Greg and I started picking Greg's brain. You know, the guys I was training with, we started becoming friends, and I look forward to coming up every week. And not to mention, the girl I was dating was living up here. You know? So it was like, all right, it was easy to come back up here. There was no like obligation. It was easy to come up here. I started making friends. I started like there's this new approach that could put at the time I was like potentially make me better. I was questioning it too. Sure. Like it was like it could potentially make me better, and then compound that with a bunch of time freed because it's COVID. Right. And so at times, like when like early 2020, like I couldn't go back to work. Right. Actually, at the time, I didn't even have a job lined up. My job kept on pushing my start date back because COVID. So I would come up here sometimes for weeks, like a week at a time, and stay up here, and then literally train. And at that time, I was like, I was starting to learn the ins and outs of the approach. And then one thing I really was curious about was not just the application for jiu-jitsu. I wanted to know what, like the theoretical, the theory behind it, like, not just for jiu-jitsu, for skill acquisition, period. So I would literally read that when I was back home. Not only would I read that stuff to understand it a little more, what I would do is like I would take the games that I was learning here. And that, mind you, I was the only one coming up. Gavin was still living back home. Right? He was still in school. So I would take the games, literally think about it on the drive home, why, and try to understand why the constraints were set this way. Right. And literally verbatim teach it to my brother. At first it was just copy. It was a copy. I didn't really know. I was like, I just trusted it for a little bit. I was like, I had to like blind trust to it. And I was like, all right, let's try it. I remember at this time, and you get to ask Gavin, man, I was speaking so highly about the approach. I said, yo, we gotta try this. It's like learning jiu-jitsu the genuine way. That's what I said to him. But you know, at the time me and Gavin were training, I wouldn't submit him, right? It was very close. Right? It was very close. Right. And I remember we were training in the gi still, and out here is just no gi. Right. I literally put the gi on and never grabbed it. I remember the first time we rolled again, he was like, what the fuck? What do you, like, how come you feel different? Right. I said, maybe it's the training, man. And then we started adopting it, when we were running our own sessions. That's how we approached it. We used a constraints-led approach. At the time, I didn't know what that was. Right. But essentially, that's what we were doing because I was just copying. And then as I got more read into the theory and I started coming up here more, I started understanding, and I started to understand how to manipulate my own constraints and make my own games. And that's how I kind of, I think that's why I learned it so quickly, because I had to teach myself and my brother when I would go back home. And then when I exhausted like those 4 days back home, I would literally play the games from the past weekend, and then the next weekend I'll learn a bunch of new games, and then do it again, do it again. And then Greg would give me like tasks to do when I went back home. Like, I want you to work on, first thing, I think one of the first things we worked on was how to play in a seated structure, right? And he gave me games and constraints to manipulate, and I thought of it. I did some thinking of myself. The first day would just be verbatim copy, and then the second day, like, can I tweak constraints? Can I change it? And compound that over a year and a half, I started learning this approach, and I knew the approach to the point where I was able to kind of make my own practice using this framework. Right. And then I was like, one, training was a lot more fun, and then two, I started seeing that I was actually having a deeper understanding of what grappling was. And then and all of 2020 there was no competition, so no pressure to there wasn't the thought like, man, this is total bullshit, how am I going to use this in competition? There was no competition, so I had time to like, just let it be, explore. And then next thing you know, it was like, shit, this is sick. You know?
Right.
And then I started competing back in 2021, and then I just felt, you know, my brother used to say, yo, D just feels different, man. He just feels different. I don't know what it is, because we didn't know what to do.
Right.
You just felt different, and that was just me training here part time.
Right.
And then, you know, after building a relationship with everybody on the team, you know, the person I was in, we were getting super serious.
Right.
Right. I decided to make the move here in the summer of 2021, and I remember I had a job at the shipyard in Norfolk, which is near Virginia Beach, and I worked there for about a year. One of the things that was holding me back from getting from there to here was finding a way to earn money. But the cool thing was, you know, I was already a federal employee,
right?
So it was fairly easy to find a job up here, and I'm lucky in the sense where I found a job that had to like kind of related to the job I was doing back home.
Right.
That was 15 minutes away from Standard. They asked me, like, how quick can you get here? I said 3 weeks. I didn't even have an apartment or nothing.
Sure.
I was like 3 weeks. I was just gonna stay somewhere until I found an apartment.
Right.
And then yeah, that's all she wrote. And then I ever since that, those weekends, it just became my daily.
Right.
And the reason, again, back to your previous question, like, how do you, like, all this, like, these external factors, I just organize my life outside so I can come to train. I literally live walking distance from the gym. I walk here, it takes 10 minutes, you know.
Right.
My work is 15 minute, a 10 to 15 minute drive easy. So
right.
I organize my life so I could continue to do what I love to do. And you know, that's how I got the Standard, and that was in the way that, so 2021 when I came here full time. 2020, all of 2020, I was here training here part time. So about 4 years of just trying to understand this approach and just like going into the Black Temple and just grinding it out with the homies. Just like that's what we it just got me where I'm at now. You know, it's crazy. It's wild how everything kind of lined up. You know, I had no intention of moving from Virginia Beach. To be honest, we kind of like the long distance relationship thing because we had our own lives and we didn't enjoy the weekends with each other, and we liked that. But you know, as I started developing, you know, relationships with everybody here, we started getting more serious. It's like the only thing holding me back is the job. Right. And I found a job quick. I was hunting for jobs hard, man. I was like every morning, every day I would send a resume out to somewhere in the DMV area just to get a job here. I didn't care what it was, you know, as long as it supported my lifestyle to stay on the mat. Yeah. I would do it. And then I was just lucky to find a job that I'm at now, because they're actually really, the people I work with are really supportive of what I do outside of work. So yeah, man. And then fast forward 2 years later, Gavin moves up here. Right. Now that his big bro's up here and he can get up here, you know, it's a fairly easier transition than just up and then leaving. So kind of going back to, like, we're 4 years apart. Right. Every time, like, one major part of someone, like, my life is done, he's kind of entering that same time frame. Yeah. And he just has a platform to do it way better than I do. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So, yeah. So that's how I got the Standard. It's kind of a roundabout way. It's like, I know a lot of people think that I just up and left Virginia Beach because I drank some Kool-Aid and I want to come up here because whatever. No, that's not the case. It's funny. Like, when I was coming back to Virginia Beach every weekend during 2020. I was sharing with them the approach, and my original instructor, Nestor, he was like, dude, you need to go there. You need to go there. You need to go there. That's making you really good. Yeah. You know, not a lot of people have that. Right. You know? Not a lot of people have coaches like that or instructors like that really care for the development of their guys. You know? Most of them are just for, you know, making sure that their gym is open and it's lucrative, you know. Nestor has never been like that. Yeah. Nestor has always been like, he wanted to make sure that I was developing as much as I could ever since I started. You know, he was never. He's always done that. You know, it's funny how, you know, a lot of people relate. I mean, you know, they don't know me and they think I just left.
Sure.
And I left for whatever reason. They don't know about I was getting serious with a girl in Maryland.
Sure.
She so happened to train at Standard.
Right.
I started coming to Standard and training every day. Started making a lot of friendships here. They don't know about that shit.
Right.
So, you know, they don't know about my job situation. None of that. So that's the whole full story. No one really knows. And, and it just so happened, like, things lined up. I had, again, no intention of leaving. Encouraged by my original instructor, you know, talking to this girl, getting serious with her, making friends, COVID, having plenty of time to just make moves. And it just happened, you know, I made the move here.
Yeah.
You know, my brother's here. It's not that I left.
Sure.
I left Virginia Beach because I want to leave Virginia Beach. So no, it was everything lined up and everything was, again, super lucky. I don't know how that happened. It just happened.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you make it sound so easy, but like, maybe we could talk about your job a little bit, because, you know, we've talked about how, you know, you really, I think, have done something very intelligent with, you know, organizing your education to get a career to support your jiu-jitsu. You know, and you're like, oh yeah, I lined up, but then you're like, oh, well, I was sending interviews, you know, resumes every day, you know, like.
Yeah.
So what do you do for work, and how is that whole?
So my background, in my academic background, I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, right? You know, I was always a good student coming up through middle school, high school. Good student first 3 quarters of college. Last senioritis hit in. But one of the things that my brother and I kind of grew up with is we noticed if, again, jiu-jitsu was never an obligation. It was never a luxury. Or it was always a luxury. It was never an obligation. Right? So what we did is, like, with that mindset, we did everything so we can continue to do jiu-jitsu. So in this case, like, in high school, it's like, you know, I'm still living with my parents. Like, you got to finish school. You keep them happy that way. I was allowed to train. Same thing with, oh, you got to go to college, do that. Okay, kept them that. Find a way, work the training in, get a job. Okay, now the cool thing about the way we're coming up, as me and Gavin are coming up, we notice a lot of everybody's path is different, but we notice a lot of like high school kids or college kids, they just drop out of school. They literally drop out of school and try to make this their thing. So the problem that I saw with that was when me and my brother thought, like, if we try to make this our living right off the bat without maximizing what we could do with our skill, you know, we're gonna have to, like, potentially cut corners, and like, we didn't want the stress of not having financial security, right, and trying to make it happen through jiu-jitsu, because we couldn't do it freely. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's kind of hard for me to articulate, and a lot of that has to do with how we were brought up. But one of the things, like, we wanted to do jiu-jitsu our way. We wanted to do it, like, freely, without having to be constrained. Like, I need to do this so I can make this X amount of money. Right. There are some trade-offs, because obviously I got to work 40 hours a week, and that may impede in recovery, that may impede in training time. But again, we've been doing this since we were high school. Like, you just find a way, maximize it, organize your life and the people around you in a way that can support your practice, you know? But yeah, so I work as an engineer. My brother also an engineer. He graduated last year. That's how he actually found a job in the same place I work at. So it's the living situation only supports the lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? So with that, now with having a full-time job, I'm financially stable, and I could do jiu-jitsu the way I want to do jiu-jitsu. Right. The only thing in the future, eventually, when, like, this will become the living, right? But I'll know I'm doing it my way.
Right.
You know? I didn't want to do it right off the bat where I had to. I don't think I was fully developed in skill yet, and I don't think I ever will be fully developed in skill. But the thing is, like, I didn't want to have to cut corners, so to speak, on the jiu-jitsu part. I didn't want to have to like try to sell anybody through jiu-jitsu. What I want to do is add value to people that train jiu-jitsu, right? Through this approach and through my experience competing. And if that's able to support my life, there you go. But I don't want to have to sell. Again, I'm not against anybody getting their bag, man. Do what you got to do. But Gavin and I were never about selling instructionals or like a bunch of like 10 techniques to do whatever it is.
Right.
We were also not about like asking for handouts and like couch surfing a lot to just to do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Because it was never an obligation. So so that's one thing that's how we were kind of growing. You know, people's paths are different.
Right.
That's my experience, and it's worked out so far. And it's looking bright as of now. We're trying to. The goal is always to make this the living.
Yeah.
But I want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
I want to add value to people's training. You know, I want people to use this as a tool to continue, like, you know, help them make it a regular thing. You know.
Yeah.
Make it a regular how Gavin and I, we saw how it helped us. You know, again, it was just, you know, it was all geared to support the lifestyle.
Right.
And then that's how it is. And then, eventually I'll be I joke that engineering is a side hustle.
Sure.
Career, but it supports the lifestyle, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's so much to talk about. It's like, oh man.
We have a lot of time.
But thank God. But so what? For one, maybe this will be a little quicker thing. But what kind of engineering do you do? You know, because like I think a lot of people, you know, I have so many students certainly that like they got a job, you know, and they're smart guys, they're in tech, and you know, it's one thing. Maybe it's one thing if you're like doing a little thing like, you know, an easy job where you can like zone out, do whatever, and then come train after.
Right.
But it sounds like you've got like a very serious, like engaged thing.
Yeah. So I can't go into super detail on this platform, but I'll say I'm an engineer. I'm a data analyst, and for times on a schedule that I have no control over, I'll go out to places around the world to collect, acquire data, and analyze data. And usually those times, no one can reach me.
Sure.
I'll leave it at that. That says like pretty much as far as I usually go. I'll say I'm a government employee. I work for the Navy. My brother does the same thing. His job's a little different, but it's essentially the same thing. But yeah, so there are times like that where the job kind of takes you away from the training. But again, if you always have the intention of trying to maximize your skill development or trying to continually progress your skill development, I think that's all like, again, whatever life throws at you, you know, you may not be able to train this week, but remember, the intention is to progress. And that's essentially how I use my job is, again, like I was saying in the last question, is to support this life, right? Support this lifestyle. It's not saying that I don't like my job.
Right.
I like my job. It's great. They're great people, and it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like the work I do, I know it makes a difference. But, you know, just like how people support families with their job, they use that as a way to get into the office and start working.
Right.
Right now, I don't have a family. I have this.
Sure.
You know, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. This is what I want to support. So the job, and you know, when I'm out working and I can't come to training, I know like, okay, this is going somewhere to support the thing I like to do.
Right.
You know? So with that mindset, it becomes a little easier to, you know, there are times where you're like, want to get out of here, man. I don't want to be here. I don't want to, I want to punch my computer screen. He's like,
Sure.
whatever. I want to go train. But
Right.
just kind of like take a deep breath and look at kind of get the perspective. Like, wait a minute, you can't train if you can't live.
Right.
Make a living. So
Right.
just realize that for a second, and then it makes it a little easier to,
Right.
to analyze data.
Sure.
Right.
There was something like with the instructionals too that I was talking to Gavin about on Sunday.
Yeah.
But where I was just saying, like, and I was telling him, because I think we all think about instructionals fairly similarly, of like, so for me, I kind of made a rule for myself of like, I always loved teaching.
Yeah.
Like teaching was my thing. And I went like kind of the different route of like, okay, I'm gonna just teach.
Yeah.
Like that's my route.
Yeah.
I teach to support myself and train to develop and it'll work together in that way.
Right.
But I always thought to myself like, okay, I want to teach like, instructionals, courses, seminars, all that. But I was like, I can't like live if I'm not like at least a very skilled expert.
Right.
I can't feel good about releasing anything.
Right. Right.
And so I set a rule for myself. Okay, I need to get a one-arm handstand on each side for like 30 seconds before I'm even going to think about teaching a workshop.
Right. You set milestones for yourself.
Right. Right.
Let me interrupt you right there.
Yeah.
Like, there are guys I see like, okay, they release an instructional. I'm not saying they're not skilled or anything, but you should be the person there should question their expertise.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, now look, let's say there's like in your example the handstand.
Sure.
Right. Literally, let's say I'm not very good at handstands. I trained it for a week and I was able to get my Instagram reel with 1 minute handstand.
Right.
Like, that's my first one ever. And I released the next day how to handstand. None of the viewers know about that shit.
Right.
None of the viewers know about that. And why? And then now you question, why did you really release your handstand instructional, knowing that you literally just learned it?
Right.
Why? So now you question the intention of the instructional. Were you really trying to help me out and learn about hand balancing?
Right.
Were you really trying to or were you trying to add value in our example to hand balancing?
Exactly.
And take the jiu-jitsu. And again,
did you have value to add?
Yeah, exactly. Did you have value to add, or did you want to
capitalize,
make a buck? And there's a lot of beginners out there.
Sure.
It's enticing. I don't want to throw anybody. I got a lot of friends. I got a lot of friends that have instructionals, and I know they are good guys.
Right.
But there are some instructionals out there. You're like, was it really to make a buck, or was it really to add value to someone's training?
Right.
Now that's a whole battle the person has to kind of internalize, and there's a lot of what they need to justify.
Right.
But the thing is, like, I never aligned with that, and I never needed to.
Right.
Because that piece of paper I got from a accredited university was like, all right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, but essentially.
But you lined it up that way.
Yeah, I lined
right?
it up.
You worked really hard too.
Everybody's like, some people don't go that route, but they still genuinely add value to people's training.
Right.
I'm not saying that you would go that route.
Right.
I'm just sharing my experience and my perspective on it.
Right.
It's not saying that you do this, you do that. Right.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of back when I was teaching kids. A lot of parents asked me, like, how do you like, should my kid do this? And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is just what I did.
Right.
Use it to inform your decisions, but don't make it a end all be all type thing, right? But just back to the instructional. I think a lot of them, may not have the most genuine intention of adding value to people's life. I'm not saying all they are like that, but there are some pretty insightful instructionals out there. But if you create an instructional just to rack it up, and I'm not against anybody making their securing their bag. I'm just I'm just saying is like, was it to add value or was it to increase revenue?
Right.
And I don't think we have enough people in the community that really sat down and thought about adding value.
Right.
There's a lot of covert things going on. There's a lot of paywalls behind
Sure.
things, right? And if we could kind of open that up a little bit and just be open with it a little bit, we could potentially push the sport to more professional levels. But you know, it's hard to think that way when, you know, if it's your living, if if your intention is to make as much money as possible.
Of course.
Again, I have a lot of friends that have instructionals, and I'm not saying that they're bad people or anything like that.
Sure.
I'm just saying, you know, just ask yourself, is this really going to add value to people, to the community that I'm part of? Is it? And you go through a whole justification process, and you internalize that, and you're just like, all right. And if you feel that it does, go release it.
Right.
Bring it to the public.
Sure.
And you know, it is you did put work into it. So if you want to put a paywall behind, go do it. You put work into there, you know. But always ask, well, does this add value?
Right.
If yes, go. If no, nah, bro.
Sure.
You know.
And that's sort of why I wanted to talk to you. You know, and I feel like you've gotten to a point where you've got a lot of insights. You know, you've got a lot of value to add. And a lot of things that I don't think people have really heard, you know? So I just want to encourage you that I think you've gotten to that point where, you know, you have a lot to share, and hopefully we'll get to, you know, some of that today and continue, hopefully, more for you in the future.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, Gavin and I have been in the game for like 15 years.
Sure.
Competing pretty much the whole time.
Right.
And we have a lot of, you know, our anecdotal personal experiences, and we've taken our notes, and you know, and then we're read enough into the theory of, in this case, this approach to kind of make it applicable, make a language around it that's applicable to like just the jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Right.
You don't need to know the theory behind the constraints-led approach or ecological dynamic. Those are all just words, man.
Sure.
I know people want something applicable, and I think, you know, through my experience prior to coming to Standard and my experience at Standard, I found like a framework that kind of is able to capture that without being super, you know, super book nerd, right?
Right. Philosophical.
It's something more applicable, and that may be the engineering side of me.
Sure.
Right? That's essentially what engineers are. They bridge theory and application. They need to know theory so that they could find the best way to apply it to something. You know?
Right.
But that's that's where my direction is going. My plans in the future is going to be a little different from what traditional like people in the jiu-jitsu community think as like seminars or workshops. You know, I want to inform, like, again, make something applicable, but I want to inform like the coaches and instructors why I set it up this way, and if they really want to go into like the nitty-gritty theory, you know, I could recommend directions, you know, and obviously Greg is very open. You know, Greg is very open. You hit up a Standard, and he'll be more than happy than to explain to you or point you in a direction where to read. You know.
Right.
But yeah, that's where I'm trying to go. My brother and I, we talk a lot. You know, we're brothers, and that's our ideas. And the places we want to start is back where we're from. You know.
Right.
We were very grateful for that area and the people in that area, and we want to kind of provide another perspective for them to explore. Right. I think that area is very. They haven't been exposed yet. You know? And we're from there. Right. We want those guys to. We know there's a lot of grappling talent in there, but it's not being recognized because they haven't gone to the biggest stage. And I think Gavin and I have that opportunity to show that. And if we could help shift perspective there, or just provide perspective so they could explore more.
Right.
who knows what can come out of that area. You know?
Right.
It's again, it's all about adding value. We want to add value
Totally.
to people's training. Not, that's how that's how my instructor growing up, that's how he treated everybody, and that's how I want to continue to treat everybody.
Right.
This and it's only going to be good for our sport. Yeah. And again, if you don't like the approach, you don't have to do it.
Sure.
But always give it a fair shot.
Right.
Fair shot, and you can question it.
Sure.
And that's what maybe that's what I'm really trying to do. Make you question your own training.
Right.
So you could start searching, start exploring, and then see where that leads you. It usually leads to increases in skill.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Right. You find out a lot more about yourself.
Right.
Than just copying, doing steps because your instructor told you.
Right.
After you did your 15 laps around the gym and 10 laps with shrimps. That's not a shot. That's not a shot. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're very like political and balanced about it. Like my video is like much more like, yo, you guys got come on.
It's funny because we're standard is portrayed to some people. These villains out here trying to turn the whole jiu-jitsu world on its head and say whatever we've been doing is incorrect.
Right.
But essentially, we're just providing another perspective, and no one else. We don't see anyone else providing another perspective on it. And again, you don't have to do any of this, bro. You don't have to do any of this. You could literally try it out for a day and be like, nah, man, this is it's like
back to my leg drags.
Back to your speed drilling, right? And back to your running around and doing shrimps, right? But hey. If you like that, that's you.
Sure.
But usually we're reaching out to the guys that really care about this and really want to develop skill.
Right.
Some guys just, and they're not wrong for this. Some people just use it as exercise.
Right.
It's a good social thing.
Sure.
You go to work, you put your pajamas on, and then you get sweaty with your coworkers or your the people you hang out with after work. Mm-hmm. If that's you,
sure,
it's you. But if you really want to get skilled, you should spend some time exploring.
Right.
I'm not saying, and notice I didn't say doing this approach. You should spend time exploring. And how can you explore? Look at as many perspectives as you can.
Right.
But shoot, people just think that we're trying to literally like
rebel,
reinvent the wheel. Nah, man, we're not. People take it like that, but. I don't know. We get a bunch of different personalities in the gym. I get sure people think we're a type of way, but you know what a crazy thing is? They never step foot in standard.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
If you step foot in standard and did a training session, you would understand.
It's different.
And I've in previous interviews I've open invite. We have
right.
I'll do another open invite. Everybody's watching this video. You could come to standard. No, you don't have to pay nothing. Come train with the whole squad, I'll look straight at the camera. Come train, bro. Right?
I mean, and that's a crazy thing. Like that, I feel like I've told Greg this. Like, one, that it's insane he lets people train here for free, like so much, and two, that like
obviously, like if they're visiting, they're not going to be here like every day.
Sure,
like,
but still,
until
what other gym lets visitors come train for free?
Again. Going back to the instructional thing, because we want to add value to people.
Right.
We don't want to take your money, bro.
Right.
Like a lot of our guys have jobs.
Yeah.
So they're financially secure.
Right.
And then we could train.
Right.
We could train freely.
Yeah.
We could train however we want.
Yeah.
Some places, some people don't have that.
Right.
Again, we let people come visit to try it out.
Yeah.
Because we know it could potentially add value, right?
Right.
We don't want the paywall being the thing stopping you.
Right.
And sometimes, just that one day at standard may change, like how it shift perspective. And it's not saying that you have to do this all the time.
Right.
But just a shift in perspective is gonna be like, yo, where was this?
Right.
What have I been doing? And should I continue to question, right? And should continue to question.
Yes.
Because, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down from now, there may be a whole nother approach based on this foundation.
Hopefully.
That we will say that this was not it.
Right.
Not it.
Right.
But it couldn't have happened without changes in perspective, without multiple perspectives being applied. And I think that's what we were trying to do for our sport, grappling, is like perspective, fresh one. Maybe you don't gotta drill endlessly.
Place a piece of paper on a wall. Punch it for 2 hours without stopping.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
A lot of people misconstrue our content with their anti-drillers or anti-whatever. No.
I'm anti-driller, but
yeah.
you can be
We're that's what we are. We're not. You know what I'm saying? At least I am.
Sure.
I actually. I have a limit on talking about jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
Because it's you, I can talk with you.
Right.
Cool. Right. But the thing is like, nah, man. It's like, perspective, new perspective, explore.
Right.
That's the message I'm trying to get.
Right.
Add value, provide perspective, go explore. And it's when I eventually start doing start doing my stuff with back home. That's essentially what I want to do. That's what I want them to don't have to look at any of the techniques.
Right.
Just, I provide you with perspective, something to explore, go do it. It will add value, may add value.
For sure.
Try it.
You mentioned like how you were kind of skeptical when you first came here.
Yeah.
And it gradually changed. But was there a moment of like an inflection point?
Yeah. So this is the thing. So this is kind of where I started developing my own language for me to understand, right?
Yeah.
So I would come here, I would train here. I was very athletic because I was a competitor.
Right.
And I would just literally move around people and try to do the thing I could think of is like knee cuts and leg drags to pass. Right. That's the only thing I was just run at them, knee cut through them, where I'll hit them with a leg drag. I'll literally do that left and right until I got through. Didn't work out very well. One, I didn't know anything about the legs. So the first training partner I really had was Trevor here. Yeah, nasty on the legs. He would just piece me up. At the time, he's a blue belt, right? I'm a black belt already.
Right.
And then that's another thing. People think that I wasn't getting pieced up by blue belts. I was getting pieced up by blue belts. That's the thing. No one, again, you weren't here, so you can't tell me, right? So literally, I would spam leg drags and knee cuts. There was some success I would get through, but it mainly I didn't understand grappling. I was just athletic and in shape, right? And I was, because I was a high level competitor. And I would literally, I had at this time I was a black belt, so I was already kind of developed my own ideas about what the game was, and I would share it with Greg, and I would listen to him. And it wasn't like an argument where it was just conversing, right? It was like, okay. And it was like, all right, again, because it was COVID, I had a lot of time. I had no risk to try this out. Because if it got me worse, okay, I'll throw it out and go back to what I was doing prior. But the thing was like, one of the things is that was hard about adopting the approach was unlearning the stuff I did before. But that's what people said that you had to do. You had to unlearn the stuff that you did before, right? But once I started reading into really diving deep into the approach, it's like, upside, that can't be true. Like, everything I was doing before was wrong, right? That can't be true because I've had success with that before. So what I did was, okay, we were talking about, I think one of the subjects we use, or one of the things we use in our approach is invariance, things that don't change, right? Things that don't change. And it was hard for me to capture that for a second, but what I did know was leg drags, knee cuts, Toriando passes. I knew the steps, right? I knew, and previously there were times where I was successful with all those things, right? So what I did was I literally had all my inventory of guard passes that I liked, and I asked myself, what is the thing common amongst all these things, right? And that's where invariance, the concept of invariance started clicking. It was like the leg drag, knee cut, Toriando pass are just superficial steps to to complete a task. What is the thing? You know, what is, and that's where I started thinking on my 3-hour drive back home. I was thinking about that. I was like, what is the in this case, what are the invariants of guard passing? And then Greg, you know, with Greg's language, he would say, you know, you segment periphery to get the center mass, right? In the guard passing situation, the periphery, which is the things around, if, you know, at first when he said periphery and words like that, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yo, go Google search it. It's easy, right? Just learn that shit, right? And then the thing is, like, when I understood that, I said, okay, he means arm, or in this case, the legs.
Right.
Segment, just get past each segment of the legs to get to the center. If you think about the leg drag, right? The steps for a leg drag, you segmented the periphery to get to the hips, right? That's essentially what he was saying, but he never told me steps to do.
Right.
The foot there, grab the foot like this, put the knee this way, get to the hips, right? I never had steps. And then when you drill it passively, you're not thinking about task objective. You're thinking about hitting the steps in sequence.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I said, okay, that's the leg drag. What about the knee cut? The knee cut there has to be something different. No, there's fucking nothing different. You just segment through, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Toriando has the same thing. You're segmenting around, you get into the hips. Now, when I made that realization, it was like, all right, all I need to do is get the legs out of the way and get to the hips. And if I just make that my task goal and I play games with that task goal in focus, I don't need to learn the steps of the leg drag. I don't need to remember the steps of the knee cut. I don't need to recognize very specific situations where, leg drag light goes off and I do the leg drag, or a knee cut light goes off and I do a knee cut. No, it's just always, in this case, if there's a down opponent, right, you got to get past the legs to get to the center, or get to the center, in this case, the hips, make that your task objective. So every time we spar, we start in different situations, guarded situations, make that your task. Segment, you get to the hips. This is the main objective. And how we're going to do that is getting rid of, segmenting the periphery. In this case, is like getting around through the legs. Right? And now I don't have to remember the 50 scenarios, guarded scenarios. I don't need to remember the specific guard pass for this specific guard. I just know all guard passing works off these invariants, and I just make that my task. And then I play a bunch of games like that, right? And then that's one of the first things I learned here is guard passing, but that applies to every grappling exchange. There's invariants in every grappling exchange. You just got to sit down and think about what are the invariants for this exchange, right? Same thing with, like, if we're on the feet, right? I'm trying to segment periphery to get the center mass, right? I'm getting around, I'm hand fighting. That's what people call hand fighting. Hand fighting around to get to the center so I can put them down, right? Like, I don't need to memorize a hand fighting sequence to get to your hips, you know? I just know I have to find a way to your hips. Right. And however that organized, I let it be. You know, I don't need to memorize, he's a right foot lead. Sure. His right hand on my shoulder. All right, I'm hitting my snap arm drag. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. You're not grappling anymore, you're memorizing. Right. You know what I'm saying? You ain't a grappler at that point, right? But for most people, that's their introduction to it. What I'm asking you, how I did it was, you got to look past the superficial and see what's never changing, right? Yeah. Those things that are never changing, those invariant things, that's what we should be focusing on, as opposed to memorizing this inventory of moves. Right. You know, sometimes maybe that's your introduction. What I'm asking you to do is not abandon them. I'm saying, understand why they work. And this approach allows you to see that. Right. You know? Right. Again, there you go. I just found the relationship between, like, the traditional approach and this approach. Sure. You know, some people, you know, that kind of, hopefully that disbands the idea of, like, we're trying to fucking get rid of the traditional. Burning. What's the agriculture? It's like burn and slash. Yeah. But yeah, that's what in my head, that's what I was kind of doing, because I didn't really align with the approach. Right. Yeah. Part of me didn't want. There was a resistance like everybody else has, because all the 12 years I've been training. Right. You're telling me I did it wrong?
Right.
I literally said that. It's like, you're telling me, in my
Sure.
head, you're telling me that whole time was a waste of time. Hey, I said it couldn't have been. I just didn't have the perspective to look at it
Right.
in a different way. And that's what we're trying to do. Again,
Right.
I'll reiterate that. We're just trying to change it, provide another perspective on acquiring skill, in this case, in the grappling sense, you know?
Right.
But yeah, man, that's one of the things. That's like literally the first thing that I learned was like, I know I could guard pass this way,
Right.
and he's telling me it's this way. There's something there,
Right.
And I spent a lot of time. Well, I had a lot of time because I was driving up. I was like, spent a lot of time thinking about that. It's like, and then once you see it, once you practice it that way, that's all you see.
Right.
All you see is like legs in the way, and getting to the hips. You start this the knee cut steps and the leg drag steps and all the very specific step-by-step sequences, they kind of fade in the background until you can't really see it anymore. And all you see, all we start to perceive, in this case, my case, getting to the hips. And
Sure.
those hips look graspable.
Right.
They really do.
Right.
When you start looking that way. But that was my process of getting onto this approach, you know.
Right.
That was the whole process, and I did that with like guarded moves as well. The sweeps I was drilling. So I'll go into make it maintain connection for the purpose of destabilization and managing distance, right? If that's all a guard was, and I talked about sweeping, and I knew like whatever easy scissor sweep, right? We're maintaining connections. We're causing destabilization, and we're finding a way to the top. You know,
Right.
I don't need to learn
Right.
sweep anyway. It applies to all grappling exchanges.
Right.
It's just that's where subject matter expertise comes in. Like a person experienced on the mat, they know, they have enough on the mat experience to know what are the invariant things. Right. You know, so yeah. That's how I got into the approach.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other thing that, I mean, there are many things that I find like fascinating about you.
Yeah.
But the thing that like everyone from the beginning of like when I got here, like everyone was always talking about was how like when you first got here, you know, the way they say it, like everyone was beating you up, like, you know, from the blue belts, you know?
They're not exaggerating.
And I've heard a lot. I've heard enough names and stories from enough people that like I have to believe it.
Oh yeah.
But now, you know, you've gotten to a point where like you're close, you know, you're kind of untouchable in the gym, you know, like I could say, you know, that's like you've gotten to an incredibly high level.
Ain't no one gonna challenge you on that.
Right. So, and that's this it's an incredible thing, right? And so we've talked a lot about that already, but you know, none of that's on film. So on camera, what are your thoughts about that, and what created that, and were there some moments along the way where you're like, oh shit, you know, I'm really progressing a lot faster than I was before? Or how's that like?
I mean, I don't know if there's a day where it's like, holy shit, this works.
Right.
I just know when I first got here, I've always had the uniform on. Right. Right. I always had the uniform. I competed only in the gi for 12 years. Right. Right. Literally, when I did no gi, I literally did no gi a week before the tournament. I was gonna do no gi, and just said it was the gi without the grips. Right. That's exactly what I used. That's how I was brought up. Right. And then, you know, that's what everybody else was. Like that traditional approach, that's how we kind of did it. Like gi, there was a tournament. There will be tournaments where it was gi first and then no gi. Or no gi first and then gi. We would say the no gi was just the warm up for the gi division. Okay, like, right. This is like the traditional. Yeah. So, you know, don't mean get off on a tangent, but when I got here, I never really had any no gi experience. Right. Mind you, I'd never even touched the legs. Sure. You know, and it's like I remember, it's like I would tell myself, oh man, I don't need to learn the legs. And I can just do it. What I was doing in the gi, moving a lot, being athletic, and I had a good gas tank. Right. And it'll work for me. That wasn't the case, you know. I remember Trevor
in a 6-minute round, he was on my legs like every 45 seconds, and just like I was like yelling tap tap tap.
As blue belt.
Yeah, when Trevor was a blue belt, I was already black.
Wow.
I was like tap tap. Then it was like panic taps because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Sure.
And then 2 was like it stopped becoming panic tap. Like holy shit, he's about to blow my leg apart.
Sure.
You know, so and you know, a lot of people that come visit, they have similar experience.
Right.
And now it's even worse because we got freaking. We had like 18-year-old.
The kids team.
The kids team. We call it the kids team. They'll murder you.
Bro.
Literally, they'll murder you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, where was I again? Like, he would be on my legs every 45 seconds. A lot of visitors were like, I know they're telling them when they're on their drive back, they're telling them the story to themselves because I caught myself doing it too. Like,
Right.
oh man, that was a bad day.
Right.
That was a bad day.
Sure.
It was just it was a long drive. I didn't really hydrate. The next day will be better.
Right.
No. The next day will not be better. Right? And a lot of people that visit, that's the last time they come.
Sure.
And you know, it's like, all right, they're like, it wasn't a bad. I'm actually good. You know, that's what they say. I'm actually good, and it was a bad day. But you know, I caught myself doing that too because it hurt.
Sure.
You know, I'm a black belt who's been training for like almost 15 years at the point. I'm like, no way, bro. And like I was saying that, and then you could just start to realize like, do I really? Then this is where the questioning needs to happen. Like, do I really know grappling, or do I just know this inventory of moves?
Right. The
like,
technique library.
Yeah, you know, and you know, maybe I'm biased now, but I'm trying to think back when I first left this room after my first training session. I'm like, you know, it's like, why is my stuff not working? Right? That's why is my stuff not working? And that's maybe just the question you need to ask so you could like really try to understand grappling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But no, all the stories are true. You know, we had like I think Trevor, because I'm really grateful for Trevor because he was my main training partner when I was visiting. He would take time out of his day to come train with me.
Yeah.
And he would be, you know, it was so I could bring stuff back home.
Right.
It was really crucial for my development because no one else was going to train with me. Trevor was coming in. I would open mat here Friday. I would train with him on Saturday. And then he would set a time on Sunday to come train with me. And it's like, without him, I probably wouldn't got as good as I did. You know? Right. But when I started coming onto the approach, you start realizing it's the tasks and variants that are important, and I just put my focus to it. Right. I really made myself try to focus on that, and you come in, consistency of training. I like training, so it was easy for, like I was saying, I like training, so it was easy for me to come in. You know, I started, you know, over time, I don't know if it was an exact day, but over time, it's like, you know, I closed gaps and started opening gaps, opening gaps and opening gaps and opening. I think in my consistency, and that's where I think where my previous training came in because I'm used to volume. I'm used to training all the time, and I like training. Right. And if I just applied the focus that was being taught in this new approach to that same mentality of work, it makes sense where the gap starts to open up a little bit. Right. You know. Right. You know, a lot of the guys. The one thing I had over the guys when I first came was a lot of like literally preparation experience. Like, I knew what it took to get prepared for something. Right. I knew I had the habits of a semi-professional athlete. Right. You know? So I was like, all right, I'll do the same. I'll put that same work ethic with this new perspective and see where it goes. Yeah. And that's what I did. And you know, my brother same way. You know, that's what he did. You know, that's what we grew up on. Now we just again get a new view. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Should we go into some technique? Yeah. You want to do this technique? We do. Yeah. Yeah. So, what's your favorite move and why? And then. Well, one thing I know that I really developed. You gotta be careful with the.
Yes,
word.
let's say, what does a move mean to you? Let's start with that, right?
I mean,
If let's
it's hard
use
for me to think that way now.
Sure.
It's hard for me to think that way. I would say what people have probably have seen me do most in competition with a high success rate is the rear triangle. Right? The rear triangle just being a strangle with the legs while on the back, right? Typically, yeah, I guess if you had to look at all my match footage and you know my training for sure. Training for sure. I hit that because I don't think there's any other submission better than a rear triangle. You know, people think they say the back is the king, right? And then you strangle with your arms. And I said, what's better than strangling with your arms? You strangle with your legs, right? It makes physical perfect sense, right? That's up for debate. You could question me. Go in the comments. Let's go. You talk, and then we could train too. But yeah, we could go over. You know, when you say move, I think people are gonna expect. Put your arm here. Do this. A step-by-step sequence. But I'll show you how I train it. For sure. I'll show you how I train it.
And I also want to just draw some attention to like. You described it very generally, right? You're like, it's a strangle with the legs from the back.
Yeah.
And maybe to a lot of people, that's like, oh, that's not like a detailed, you know, deep understanding, right? But there's a reason why you described it like that. Can you?
Because, look, I could tell you, if I told you that, right? If I told you a detailed understanding, like step by step, like that, right? What I'm gonna tell you is how it. If I knew a step-by-step sequence, what I would tell you is the way I do it. But you are not me.
Right.
I am not you. Right?
Right.
So if I give you a general idea, it's a strangle with your legs while you're on the back. You could organize around that. It's fairly simple, right? Right. As opposed to, you know, I do this, I angle off this way, and then you notice like my legs are not like your legs, and like I can't angle off this way. So that's why the step-by-step moves kind of breaks apart. Yeah. You know, if I give you general ideas, invariant things that work, that make the rear triangle work, it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you complete those tasks, and as long as those invariants are always, if you always recognize the invariants that are for this move, you want to call it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Whatever we want to.
Yeah.
However we want to describe it.
Sure.
A method.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, these are all just words anyway. It don't matter. In grappling, you don't speak. So.
Right. I personally, I'll still call them moves and techniques and drilling. Sure. But I think of them completely differently. Yeah. You know, hopefully.
Usually that's why a lot of people, it's the loss in the similar definition. Right. You know, we use words for something and they use the same word and they're like, oh, this is what this means. So, So they must be
drilling secretly.
Selling snake oil or some shit. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But no, so the rear triangle, that's what I've had high success with that in the previous, and I could actually tell you a story why I started focusing on the rear triangle. Early on when I was competing here, we were doing a lot of EBI style competitions, finishers, sub only, and 10th Planet Bethlehem. We were coming up there pretty much every weekend. Right. And one of the things that we were struggling with was the EBI overtime. Right. It was like, for me at least, it was like, I could take people's backs in regulation, and if I couldn't finish them, I would have to deal with the constraint of the overtime. And that's it's fairly easy for the less skilled grappler to win the match. So, and that's kind of like, it's probably worded not the best way, but what I'm saying is like, I would lose in the overtimes a lot on the back. Right. I would lose on the overtimes, and a lot of times was when I would go for rear strangles, like traditional rear naked strangles. It was like I was losing control of the rotation, managing the rotation. I would lose the back, and in an EBI overtime, losing the back. That's that period of the overtime is over.
Right.
I would either lose on overtime, or they would take my back and, they would submit me faster.
Sure.
It was a thing. So I was like, all right, what is the problem here? Is there a better way, right? And that's why I say, okay, why do I need to strangle them with my arms, right? I can strangle them with my legs. And mind you, I've learned a rear triangle in the traditional way
Right.
back home, so it's not like it was novel to. I knew what potentially.
Right.
I knew how to apply a triangle,
Right.
But the way I trained it using this approach was focusing on some of the key tasks on the way to locking a figure or locking a triangle from the back, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, we could go.
Yeah.
Go
Let's
yeah,
get into it.
I didn't know if I could curse, but I was cursing up a fucking storm.
There's no.
But well, that's me, man. That's me. I like to start at the very end.
Yeah.
Because at the very end, there's less variability.
Right.
Does that make sense? So right before the submission happens.
Yeah.
Right. So let's real quick. Let me get to the triangle. So here, trying to strangle you. Right. So this is essentially. So all strangles, and again, this is like where this approach kind of helps you start learning variants. All strangles work off the principle of double closure. So essentially, all we're doing is like cutting off circulation on both sides, right? So in this case, I'm going to use my leg and then your arm, because it's an arm in, right? That's how we're going to cause the strangle, right? So essentially, what we're doing is this is the shape that we're trying to achieve, so we can apply double closure, right? So we start with this, right? We can kind of start working backwards and develop, understand the tasks we need to get there, right? So let's not back up all the way to the beginning of it from a neutral position, but let's talk about the back. The rear triangle being I'm behind you, so we can start from the back. Right, from here, and before we start learning about rear triangles, you gotta learn the fundamentals of the back, right? But we could train that a whole another day. For this platform, we're just gonna start on the back, but we could briefly go over is like the back is based off of I need to make sure I maintain chest to back contact, the back, and head arm alignment, right? Meaning my choking arm or the arm that's going to go around the neck is opposite of my head, right? As long as I keep those things, chest to back contact, head arm alignment, and as I do that, managing rotation, however you move, as long as I maintain those things, I keep the back, right? The moment I lose those conditions, head arm alignment, and especially the chest to back contact, this is no longer the back anymore. So if you can't maintain control of the back, your ability to maintain control of the back is going to be related to how well you can learn how to do
of course,
your triangle, right, or strangle with your legs, right? So that's one thing like someone would need to train, right? We would need to train our ability to maintain the back, and those are the fundamental things for controlling the back: chest to back contact, head arm alignment.
Right.
The moment those conditions are broken, we are no longer on the back.
Right.
Makes sense. And there's a whole series of games we can play just for that. But let's talk about the rear triangle. So if we go back to what the final thing was, right? The end goal that we're trying to achieve. You notice that I create a arm in, arm out situation, right? So one arm is in and one arm is out. I have the head and arm trapped in between my legs. Another thing that you notice is my legs are involved at your shoulders. As opposed to, let's start from the beginning position. None of those things are created at this point, right? So I don't have arm in, arm out situation, and I don't have my legs involved at the shoulders. So that kind of informs you on the task goals we need to complete as we get to the rear triangle. And then obviously when you get to the rear triangle, it's about applying the strangle and creating double closure. So again, if we go back here, we're talking about having
like even if I don't have it, arm in, arm out, and my legs are involved at the shoulders, how do I develop skills to create those conditions so I could have the ability to apply the strangle, right?
Right.
So now that we know the end, what we're trying to achieve, we can start it kind of informs our process
Right.
on how to train it. So one of the first things we learned is that we need the arm in, arm out, right? So how would I train that? We would start on the back, right? And we're gonna give a task goal for the defending player and then the offensive player. The task goal for the defending player, it could be just turn and face, or not even turn and face. You could just, for example, get your back on the mat, create the condition of chest to back contact, and if I can't maintain that, I definitely can't rear triangle you. Right. So we'll make that task goal for the defender. My task goal. So this is where I kind of started developing the language of terminal or capability and capacity. So if I'm not very good at creating arm in, arm out situations, this is if I'm not very good at that yet, I need to work on my capability of doing that. So I create a terminal game, right? A terminal game meaning I'm trying to achieve an end state, right? And that will be a win for me, right? If I achieve the state in this case of arm trapped, we'll call that a win, and then we can flip flop, and then you would go on me, and then our roles will switch. I'll be the defending player. I'm just trying to break chest to back contact, and then you will be the offensive player, and you would try if it's a terminal game, you would try to trap my arm, right? That's if we want to work on the capability of trapping arms, right? Let's say we are good at trapping arms, or we had success in the past at trapping arms, but we have a trouble maintaining the arm trap, right? This is what we start to work on our capacity, right? So how long we can hold conditions, right? So in this case, we would start with the arm trap, and all your goal is not even to get your back on the mat or break chest to back on. All your goal now is to get your arm untrapped or free, essentially. And what that's gonna do is make me search for solutions to make sure I maintain arm trappedness. Right. Does that make sense? So if you can't do it, if you're not very good at it, you do a terminal game to work on your capability, right? If you have success and experience trapping arms, but you can't maintain it, right? You can't maintain conditions, you need to work on your capacity. So we play a continuous game. In this case, it'll be a continuous game for the offensive player of trying to maintain the condition. So a round may look like this. I trap the arm and you never get it free. Right. You know, you never get it free, and I do my job of maintaining that as a continuous game. All I need for the game to continue is fulfilling that condition. Once that condition is broken, we flip flop and we go again. Right. And that's gonna help you in this case, in this specific example, increase your capacity to keep an arm trapped. Does it make sense? Yeah. So we have these concepts of capability and capacity, and in this case, the task goal of trapping arms, because we know that's required to get a rear triangle. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's how we would organize the game. So if I'm not good, just to recap, if you have your depending up here, if I'm not good at trapping arms because I know I need to trap arms for rear triangling, I need to play a terminal game just to fulfill that condition. However that looks, right? In this case, we're not really going, so I'll do that. That's it. Sure. In a live situation, we're moving. I'll find solutions. I'll do anything I can. To start trapping arms, you know. And that may look different. And then if you want to increase your to make it even better, you would change bodies with people, right? I would have. Let's say I had another training partner, I would try to solve the same problem with all these people, and then you look how much, you can only imagine what kind of skill development is there, right? You know, you could solve a bunch of, against multiple different opponents, but you know that's the invariant task, as it relates to getting to a rear triangle, that's what I would do, right? I would do that. So you get capacity, capability. If you want to work capability, terminal game. If you want to work capacity, start in the condition you want, and maintain it as long as you can. If that means the whole round, that's on you, bro. You gotta get better, right? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that you don't get any work, because right. Because if we understand that jiu-jitsu is zero sum, what's good for me is bad for you, right? If you know that's what I need to do to continue the game, you also kind of know that from the other perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're still getting your training, although I hold the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe we could show something real quick, just an example of that. Because I think one of the first rounds we did in the Friday open match, we were doing like a garden pinch game.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if you're on the back.
Yeah.
And
guard,
and so I was playing guard.
Yeah.
And I think your job was to like prevent me from sitting up.
Yeah.
And I think we did like a 10-minute round.
Right.
And you were like just all over this.
Right.
And there were, every once in a while I felt like there's a chance I could sit up, and you kept holding onto my ankle. Right. And because of this, if you like trying to sit up, and you just kept preventing me from doing that. And over that for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't win once. All I had to do was sit up. Yeah. And that was so salient. Yeah. That after that, okay, now I'm doing that to other people. Right. Because I remembered it. It's stuck in the memory.
So let's break that down a little bit. If it's a continuous game like that, right? And it was continuous for the passer, right?
Right.
To get good at keeping guys down, right? All my focus was maintaining the condition of you not sat up, right, or you on your back. Does that make sense? And I'm not thinking about grabbing like this, grabbing like that, grabbing. As long as those conditions are fulfilled, I'm doing my job. Right. Whatever I'm doing is right as long as those conditions are fulfilled, right? Yeah. And the moment you started, I started seeing that condition could potentially be unfulfilled. I acted accordingly. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I got, in that particular case, the guard passing case. Keeping guys on their back is required for you to pass, right? Right. Because if they're not on their back, how you can pass? Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's fundamental to that process. Does it make sense? Yeah. Let's go back to the time.
Maybe can we play one of those games before we continue to the next one?
Yeah. So from the root. Yeah. So in this game, let's play I'll use the language, right? Let's play a terminal game so I can work on my capability of trapping the arm. Why are we trapping the arm? Because I know it's a requisite thing to get to the rear triangle. And that's why I start from the very end, so we could kind of informs the task that we need to create while we practice, right? So in this case, we're working on the task of trapping the arm, right? Getting the arm trapped. So let's set the constraints, win conditions, playable conditions for both players. All right. For let's say your job, your win condition is all you have to do is get your back on the mat, break chest to back contact, right? And we'll also add no occupation. I have no occupation of under the arms, right? Because so like let's say for example you get here and I'm still under your arm, I can still potentially walk back. Back taken, right? Your job is to get your back on the mat. Even if I mount you, that's fine. I know this is like mounting is not really good in the full performance environment, but in the case of what we're trying to develop rear triangle, one of the things we need to do is maintain the back. Right. Those are conditions that we need to get good at maintaining. Right. So what your job as a defender is just to get your back on the mat. Or break. Let's make it even more general. Like break chest to back contact. So it could be back on the mat. It could be stand up and turn and face. It could be anything like that. So as long as I, as an offensive player, need to maintain the condition of chest to back contact, I'm representing the performance environment. Right. And this, again, by the way, all this shit is live, right? You're really trying to get out, and I'm really trying to maintain. Right. That's how our approach works, right? So, and then we can start playing from there. This is a terminal game, working on my capability, and then my job as the offensive player is just to fulfill the condition of trapping an arm with my legs. Right? Make sense? Yeah. And that's all I gotta do. And I know like from the back, there's a lot of things you can do. I can start strangling, all that stuff. But again, we're working on getting to the rear triangle position, right? Or rear triangle, the condition for a rear triangle to apply, right? So that's how we would play. Ready? Go. And then we'll flip flop. I have to fulfill the condition of arm trap. We'll flip flop. Go.
Damn, Bren, you make me train, bro.
I'm on vacation, though. All right, let's go back to the rear triangle, all the way to the end. It's just the so full lock rear triangle. Right. Again, arm in, arm out. That's the requisite for this. And then one thing you notice, my legs are involved with the shoulders, right? So my legs are attached to the shoulders. How that looks like, right? You know, if you saw the last round, sometimes inherently we were already trapping the shoulders as we trapped the arms, but it didn't mean that that was what we were doing. All we needed really to do was fulfill this condition. It may look like this. Notice how this is, I'm trapping the arm, but I'm not involved with the shoulders yet, right? So a lot of people can get good at this, right? But another requisite thing that we need is getting our legs involved at the shoulders. So again, using the same kind of framework, capability, capacity, we may, for example, we may start with a condition if we're having trouble, and this is where a coach will look at the room and be like, all right, they're getting good at trapping the arm, but they're not getting to the shoulders, right? So the next day when we come in and play, right, we may start with this condition, right? Because we worked on this already, right? We have time in spending time solving this problem, right? But now as a coach, you will look and say, all right, and guys are not getting to the shoulders. So we will start in this condition, and now the goal is to lock a head and arm with the legs, right? It doesn't mean it has to be a full figure four, right? It can look like this. Does that make sense? See how his shoulders capped? I'm not in a triangle at all. I'm just like have a closed wedges around his head and arm with my legs, right? So again, or the condition of arm trap is we started in that condition, and now we're going to try to work on the capability of us getting our legs involved at the shoulders. Does that make sense? So this will be considered, if, let's go back, arm trap. If this is the case, right, we're starting with the arm trap, I'm working to get the shoulder capped, right? So my win condition for me, if I'm working on the capability of getting to the shoulders, would be cap the shoulders, keep the arm, maintain the condition of arm trapped, and then get to the shoulders with my legs. And that will be a win. So again, it could look like this, right? It could look like a fully locked triangle. It could look like the other way. It doesn't matter. Getting to the shoulders, keeping the condition of arm trapped. And this is where we get into the idea of playable and winning conditions, right? So we're starting in a condition arm trapped, right? That's the condition we're starting in. And I need to continue to maintain that, right? That playable, it allows me to continue to play, right? It allows me to continue playing the game. The moment I lose that playable condition, that's a win for you, and that will be a loss for me, right? So before I even think about getting to the winning condition of tapping the shoulder, I have to work on my capacity of maintaining the initial condition, the condition I need to play, right? And we talked about that last game. That's where we play a continuous game with the arm trap, right? So in this case, it's kind of we're working on the capability of getting to the shoulders with our legs, but we're also secondarily working on our capacity to keep our arm trapped.
Right.
And we could have focused just that capacity solely using a continuous game. But in this case, we're working on the capability of getting the shoulders. So this is our starting condition. We need to maintain that condition. If we don't, it's a flip-flop. You will go offense, I will go defense, and I will try to go to the shoulders, right? Does that make sense? And then we'll make it, and this is where another concept we use called uneven games comes in, right? An uneven game is to make the skill that we're trying to develop more salient. Does that make sense? And more it heightens the focus for the person that's trying to develop the skill. In this case, we're trying to develop the skill of getting to rear triangle, right? Rear triangle, so we can apply triangle, right? In this case, your job as a defender is fairly easy, right? It's just get the arm free, right? If your task focus is just to get it's something very easy compared to what I'm trying to do is cap the shoulders, and I know that's subjective, but in this case, we're considering I'm not skilled at rear triangling yet, and it's fairly simple to just free your arm. This is where the idea of uneven games helps the person that's trying to develop the skill, right? So from here, your game, your win condition is very, very simple for your arm. My win condition, not only my win condition, my playable condition is to maintain the arm trap and then get to the shoulder. Does it make sense? And then from there, we continue to play. So all you have to do is free your arm. So let's if we're starting in here, if you get your arm free, boom, flip flop. That's on me because I couldn't maintain that condition, right? And if I maintain that condition and if I get to the shoulders, right, that'll be a win for me. And then we flip flop. And then the roles will switch where I am the defender just trying to get my arms free, and you are the person trying to cap the shoulders.
And just one more thing on the asymmetric games. One thing that I really like, and you've been emphasizing the asymmetric games for a while. I really like, it's good for you to develop the skill. But the other thing that I love about it is like now, we've got a big skill gap. Right. And so, if we were playing a normal game, like I don't have any chance to win. And at some level, that can make it harder to like focus and like stay engaged with the pass.
But with an asymmetric game like this, like, all I have to do is free the hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Okay.
And it's representative.
Yeah,
It's representative of the
exactly.
environment.
So it really like that's another thing I love about it, that it makes it so that with even a big skill gap, we can both get great.
Right. And you said it's cool that you mentioned that, because when we play uneven games, it allows, like you said, a far more skilled player to get work in.
Right.
But this is from a coaching side as well. You know, we come in every day as different people.
Right.
You know, midweek we're tired, we're dead. You know, we're so what? How can you make sure your guys are staying on the mat, focused,
Right.
without like completely
Sure.
them checking out?
Right.
You create an uneven game with simple tasks like this. You know, that's one thing, right? The simple tasks. In this case, we got, again, they can help with skill gap. They can help with like midweek fatigue. Because we understand how the constraints are playing into our skill development, we can change those constraints.
Right.
And make sure our guys are progressing on a day to day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And obviously, progression is not obviously not in a linear fashion, but we make sure that we're getting improvements on a day to day, on some scale, week to week, some scale, and then eventually month to month, year to year, you see those things start to increase. But the thing is, this is why the approach is it's useful, because we could tweak things like this. And then most people, well, in traditional approach, and I don't mean to get on a tangent, but the traditional approach, what do you do on a day when everybody's fried?
Right.
You do light drilling, right? That's not representative at all.
Right.
It's even less representative than high intensity drilling, right? You know what I'm saying? Now you're just like, you do a partner yoga. I mean, there's use for that, but like, no knock on the yogis, but you know what I'm saying? How can we keep a training session with work that's useful and representative of what we're trying to train for, but not like completely fry our guys where they can't come in the next day and train, right? We manipulate constraints. We can make easy task focuses that are still representative of the training environment, but it doesn't take as much effort. Right. In this case, it will be on your side. Like, all I gotta do, I don't even have to escape the back.
Right.
My guy on the back is trying to develop the skill of getting to the shoulders, and all I gotta do is free my arm. That's it. It helps. And what it does is, because the task is uneven, it's the likelihood of the likelihood of the exchange going long.
Right.
Is very short.
Sure.
Right. So we got a lot of flip flops and exchanges, but we're not losing representativeness. And we're still with live resistance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is how this approach could, one of the questions about this approach, how do you prevent injuries? How do you prevent the guys, like, everybody can't spar every day? Sure they can. You just got to manipulate the tasks and the constraints where the game can't go as long, And we do that. And that's what we do midweek. All our guys, we train super hard Monday, Tuesday. We're pretty fried. We manipulate constraints. And where the constraints are, where the task focus are very simple, and the exchanges can't go long. You don't get that burning feeling, but you're still representing the performance environment with live resistance. That's the thing. And and if you guys go deeper into what constraints are, there's environmental task constraints, what we're trying to manipulate, with the coach giving us information like that. And then the individual constraint, that's fatigue, right? That's an individual constraint. Fatigue is going to play a role in the emergent behavior, right? So if the environment in terms of the room doesn't really change, maybe the slipperiness, but we tend to neglect that. The task constraint is what we have the most kind of agency and control with, and then we have to, as a coach, to monitor the individual constraints, athlete personality, athlete fatigue level, athlete stress, and that's important to create a culture in your gym where the coach and where they're close enough where the coach kind of reads that, knows that, right? They know we should like Monday, Tuesday, these guys are fried, We still gotta put work in, but we don't need to
completely like burns out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is where the uneven game. I mean, uneven game tangent, but that explains some of the benefits of uneven game. Skill gap, and then monitoring weekly fatigue or daily fatigue, or monthly fatigue. But yeah, let's go. We can play right now.
All right.
I'm lying in underwear too, so you gotta figure it out.
Nah, maybe not.
Yeah. So again, we're gonna the initial conditions. So, and I'll go into this real quick. It's important that the coach.
Hold on.
Yeah, put it. You just put it to the mic. I'll just hold it.
Yeah.
So the initial conditions. In this case, we're starting with the arms trap, and it's important for the person giving out the task and or the person that's running the class or running the training session. Make sure they everybody knows the initial condition. So in this case, I would let everybody know the initial condition is starting with the arm trap on the back, right? And then that's where we'll start. And and a lot of the time, the first thing the round starts, the first question I hear coming out of the training room is where we start, where we started. That's the thing. So I would emphasize initial conditions, playable conditions, winning conditions. And that's all an athlete kind of really needs to pay attention to even just play. And then obviously the other informational constraints the coach may provide,
One more thing. So when we're doing something like this, right?
Yeah.
So we're trapping the arm, right?
Yeah.
So if you come back, but there's all sorts of different ways that we can trap the arm. And so when you're playing a game like this, how do you think of varying your initial condition here? Do you try to do it the same way every time?
Yeah,
do you try to do it different?
So
how different?
It depends on how specific the task was laid out, or how the initial condition is laid out. If the coach didn't really specify, you just pick the most comfortable. If you want to add variation, this is an arm trap. This is an arm trap. You could change. We could change. We could start like this.
Right.
Anywhere, but unless the coach puts it. Specifies that I want you to start in different orientations with that condition, you do it. But usually, it depends on how specific we're trying to get into. Sometimes we explore that. Sometimes we get super specific. Sometimes there's a lot of variation within the round, right? That's another thing we could change. If we want to, if the guys are getting stagnant, we'll throw a perturbation in there, like changing orientation, right? And that can. That can potentially break some, plateaus. If you want to say, you get guys thinking differently while still maintaining the trying to develop the skill that we want to develop. That makes sense? Yeah. So in this case, I didn't get really specific with it. We could just start like this, right? Or if we do want to add variation, we start in different orientations. Again, coach has to look at the room. Gotta explore. Yep. Gotta look at the skill level of the room. Gotta look at the fatigue level of the room. Gotta know your guys, and then we can play. Sounds good. So initial conditions here. All you gotta do. Free. Is the one. Ready. You all on camera?
Nah, you good. I struggle with this one, so
Yeah.
I gotta study this footage later.
Yeah. Yeah. What I noticed there, that's an initial, like, this is good for, like, this is applicable not to only coaches, but to the guys that have kind of control of their own training. Maybe you live somewhere else and you have access to mats and you have partners, and maybe the gym that you train at doesn't really adopt this approach.
Right.
You know, you could make your own games.
Yeah.
But when you make your own games, sometimes without the coach, it's hard to see like if it's representative or not. You know, in this case, and when we were playing, and I did this a lot. I would set a game, and I think it would do something. It would work, and then after playing the game, I would continue to finish the session with the initial constraints I set prior to the session, and not change it. But the next time, I would kind of reflect and say, oh, maybe that game could be improved a little bit, right? Yeah. Maybe that game could be improved in a way that's more representative of what the performance environment looks like. And I just noticed it here. We're starting with the arm trap, right? And our goal was to trap the shoulder. And I made the winning condition for you to just to trap the arm, right? You know, that's, you know, maybe that's, and I just noticed, that's under the assumption that we think that has to happen in that sequence. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, like we have to trap the arm. We have to trap the arm first to get to the shoulders, right?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So like, there's a moment where I was playing. It's like I can get to the shoulders, but I feel like I'm going to lose the arm. But I'm going to get to the shoulders and then re-trap the arm. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I was kind of thinking. But and that's right there for the guys that are running their own practice to have control. You would if you start understanding the approach a little bit, you could start manipulating. Oh, maybe that wasn't as representative.
Right.
You know, does it really need to be in a sequential order where I trap the arm then get to the shoulders, or can those happen concurrently, or can I get the other way around too? Because I've done this before, right? When we play the full game, right? I've done this before, where I'm like this. You know what I'm saying? I'm like this. I'm essentially capping his shoulder. I'm attached to the shoulder, but his arm is still inside. And what I do from here, usually, looking back, I trap the arm after. You know what I'm saying? So, you see what I'm saying? Like, when you understand how to manipulate constraints, you could reflect on your last game and be like, you could, again, going back to questioning and exploring, you're like, is that representative?
Right.
Because you may have experience in the past training, like getting rear triangles without having the sequence of trapping. So if we had to play a next game the next day, and I wanted to do the same thing, I probably wouldn't start with keeping the arm trapped. I would start in the back and go back to the game where you just had to get your back on or separate chest to back contact, and I had to fulfill both conditions. Does that make sense? But it doesn't mean because the way we set that game up, it constrained it too much where you could only do it in that sequence. But that's not necessarily the case in the performance environment. You know, that's so that we could, if you understand how constraints work, we can make that adjustment. And that's essentially what we have to do. Like the thing is, grapplers have to be doers. When you're on the mat, let's say I made that game and I set those constraints prior to getting on this mat, I'm gonna play those games. I'm not gonna change it in mid-session. I don't like doing that, right? That's just me personally. You can try it, but I like doing it, and then because that informs my next day's practice, you know, the next day's practice, and there we go, right? And essentially, and from right there, and this is all just for a very specific rear triangle. Look how many games and like ways to develop skill, capacity, capability, unevenness. You know, we have all those things in just this sequence, in just this this skill that we're trying to develop, getting
the rear triangle in order to strangle. You know, that's something big. That's something I deal with a lot, especially when I was going back home. Was I noticed like maybe that's not the best way. But the only way to know it's not the best way is to actually do it. Right. So people are afraid, and this could be why there's a lot of resistance. Like people are afraid to do the wrong thing. You kind of have to do that so you could inform your next day's practice, you know. And that's essentially. And it just so happened that happened right. I did not intentionally mean to do that. But after I played the game, was like, wait a minute, I don't think this is the best way we could put it. But use that footage,
sure.
And that's it's funny how that led to that, because that's essentially what I do on a daily basis.
Right.
You know, the cool thing is if you have a coach, I could be a full-time athlete and just do, right? And then reflect on my training. Right. And then if I do run my own training, you know, I reflect on what I just did. But you never reflect on the mat. You're doing. Yeah. You're training on the mat. Reflect afterwards. You know, you have time to be an intellect of jiu-jitsu, not here, right? Not on there.
You don't like to be like, he got to my shoulder like this, so I, you know, like a little.
I mean, as it only relates to completing the task of the game. That's it. That's as far as I can go. The cool thing about having task focus is that you don't have to get in your head so much.
Right.
You're looking to the environment externally.
Right.
And you're trying to achieve a task. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the only kind of conscious thoughts that are really coming into my head. After you're doing this for a while, that's all that really comes to your head. The task focus and getting to it.
Right.
And completing those conditions that are a part of that task. Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And then, that's so I don't really, the cool thing about, like I said, using this approach, that doesn't really get, you know, I remember when I was doing the traditional approach, I'll get in my head like, all right, I need to do a leg drag now or a knee cut now, but it's not really, that's very internal. You're going into your head, you know, and that's, you know, I researched by Gabriel Wolf and other people in that field, that kind of leads to what most people call choking, right? In high pressure situations, you get internal as opposed to searching the environment externally.
Right.
That's where everything happens. Nothing's happening in here that's important, at least, you know. And there's so you would, if we keep it external and task focused, we get to it, and that's helped me a lot in competition. Actually, like there are times where sailing, you get into your head, but the only thing in my head is the task, right? Reading, like understanding what looking at the environment, understanding what are playable and winning conditions. In the performance environment, in an open round, the playable condition is not get submitted. The winning condition is submit him, right, or them, right? Submit them, right? So it's if we understand that, it makes it actually fairly simple, not easy, but simple to conduct to know where to go, then inform your decision making. Right. You know, that's one way this approach has helped me, right? So if it could help me, it could help a lot of people that are stuck in the same situation. And I know a lot of people that get in their heads. Right. I mean, I think every athlete has gone to that point where they get so self-aware, so self-conscious, they freeze. Right. You know, I've had that plenty of times. You know, my brother has had that plenty of times. We have really high-level guys that's happened plenty of times. But I'm not saying that this approach eliminates that. I'm just saying it makes it easier just to stay focused on the environment. The environment in our sport is the opponent, the opponent's body, and completing a task. Right. You know, that's the thing. But going back to what we were talking about, that's essentially how I would train to get good at the rear triangle, right? And then at the end, if you keep the mic on, there's no more games after this. Like and after the end, all I'm doing now is strangling mechanics, right? And you know, I guess you could potentially drill that, right? Because there's less variability here, right? Essentially, but we could play the game too. Like, all right, Bren, you got to get out of the triangle before I strangle you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we could play that game. But at that point, because you got so good at, you developed the skill of trapping arms, getting in the shoulders, in any sequence, the likelihood of you getting a rear triangle is, it's all a matter of applying the strangle, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And then some people need to understand how the mechanics of, and it's the beginners, a lot of beginners, and beginners may even play that game.
Yeah.
Right? Start in the rear triangle just to feel the mechanics or gain the mechanics of strangling.
Right.
Our higher level guys, like, we kind of already know how to do that, so we're not focusing on at the end game so much. We're focusing on the conditions required to complete that end game. But yeah, that's how I would train it. And then, who's ever watching this, you could use this approach and those concepts for any problem you have in any grappling exchange. You play, and I'll just recap the things. Like, if you need to work on your capability of doing something, you play a terminal game where there's an end goal and you flip-flop. If you need to work on your capacity to do something, you start in the condition and try to maintain that for the whole round. That's your goal. You can't win that. It's called a continuous game. If there's a skill gap, we make an uneven game. Or if we want to highlight the person that's trying to develop the skill that we're after, we make it uneven for them, than them being on the harder, more effortful side. And then what else? We got continuous, terminal, and for capability, capacity, uneven games, and this all starts with looking at the end game, because we all know what the game ends in jiu-jitsu: submission, and there's only 5 things you can submit: legs, 2 legs, and arms, and head. And it essentially becomes 3 things, because the legs repeat itself and the arms repeat itself. But those are, if we start in the end game, the submissions, it kind of informs what was needed to achieve these conditions. And when you look at it, this is where subject matter expertise comes in, people on the mat. It comes in, what was needed to achieve those conditions, that informs your task goal when you're structuring a practice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In this case, we talk about arm trapping, getting to the shoulders in order to finish a rear triangle strangle. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it works for anything.
Yeah.
And if you don't, sometimes it's hard to see, because I explained it to you in this fashion. Sometimes it's hard to see for passing or for guard or for wrestling or for or back taking, but it just takes some time sitting down. A lot of grapplers have this firsthand experience. You just got to sit down and reflect unbiasedly. What are the things needed to achieve this condition I want, and what are the and you develop tasks along that. And like we just did, sometimes those tasks are not as representative. Reflect on it, adjust, find something's more, and maybe you went in the wrong direction again. Continue. And again, we're going back to what I said. I'm trying to add value to guys. I'm trying to provide a perspective for them to explore, being a big thing. Explore. I want eventually an instructor, coaches or instructor's goal is to make an autonomous grappler. Somebody that could teach themselves. We should eventually, this is the dream, is to get a room of black belts that could structure a practice on the fly, using this approach. Yeah. So that's essentially, now you have the secrets, I guess. We weren't hiding anything, but you have the secrets. It's there's nothing secret about it. It's just, it's another perspective, and you still got to put work in. You still got to train. I see a lot of YouTube clickbait. 15 leg locks that won the worlds, That win the worlds. That guy that's playing, that won the worlds and is doing the 15 leg locks, whatever. He knows that's not what won him the worlds. He knows what truly won him the worlds. It was like spending time in a live environment and just putting the work in. But not a lot of people like to buy that. You know what I'm saying? Make sure, again, I won't say it loud. I won't say it. Maybe we end off with this. Make sure it adds value. Question everything. Change your perspective constantly. explore, and that's it, man. That's all it ever will be. And then again, for the grapplers out there that don't have a coach that's approaching this, you just gotta put the work in. You know, read some books. It's actually really not a funny fact that like I'd never really read until I never had a daily reading practice until I did this, because the reason why, okay, going back to why it was easy, like why was it easy for me to read a book when I would never open books before?
Sure.
Because now I found a reason to, because I liked doing jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And now every morning, everybody sees me when we compete. I'm up early, drinking my coffee.
Right.
Probably I shouldn't be doing that first thing in the morning, but drink my coffee, read a book, and I read my pages, and then if it's a competition day, we eat breakfast, go compete.
Sure.
If it's a training day, we go train. But yeah, add value, look at different perspectives, and explore. And that's what I hope to kind of provide. And I hope, you know, my brother also aligns with this. You know, he's not in town right now, but that's what I want to start back in my hometown first, because I have some emotional attachment there. That's essentially where I'm from. That's my family,
Right.
and I want those guys to have a good platform to, again, like I said, explore.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I've started to notice and feel is like the progress people make here.
Yeah.
Like it's harder work, right?
Yeah, because it's live.
It's
yeah.
live. We're live the whole time. We're working.
We're not faking anything.
Right.
Yeah.
We're working for everything. There's no partner yoga.
Yeah.
You know.
Again, that's not a shot to the yogis. I got a lot of friends that are yogis. They're really good friends. That's not no offense to Willow.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, there's like yoga there's everything for its own sense. And
Yeah.
there's like, okay, we're trying to do this because we think it helps our jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That's not really the case.
Right.
You know, and that's a different picture.
Right.
But something I've noticed is like you know, people with like the more traditional approach, like I think a lot of those guys, you know, like they start really athletic.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they get a little better and that takes them to a world championship level.
Right.
But like it feels like here, like the average Joes get fucking good.
I got an idea. I have an idea on that. All these things, the traditional approach, the ecological approach. I don't even think we even said that. Standard even said that. I think other people put that in our mouths. Like, you know, I think that's what we talk about it because that's the big umbrella framework that all these other things came from. Right. But I don't know why people like, it's the ecological. There's a whole network of people on the internet. There's the eco bros, the eco network. I said, that doesn't sound like us, really. You know what I'm saying? But I would say something about like there are guys like you mentioned that came up in the traditional approach and they became world champions. But I don't, like you said, I don't think what they tell themselves that worked, I don't think it worked the way they thought it did. Right? And that's fine, right? What I would say though, I found it the invariant thing amongst high-level competitors. You know what it is?
What?
Competition.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But you know, this is where I advocate for our approach is like when you use approach with more live resistance, imagine the level of competitiveness that's instilled in the people practicing that way. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying a driller, somebody in the traditional approach can't become a world champion. Of course. It's usually those specific personalities that are really competitive, they go far, right? What I'm trying to advocate here is our approach, it just fosters that inherently. You know what I'm saying? There's guys that do the traditional approach. Right. Like, I think Greg said this, we have guys, there is no high-level guy, world beater, that's never live sparred. Right. That's never live sparred. We just do live resistance, and we don't necessarily call it sparring, but we do live resistance, live work, and we get guys there. There's never been the other side.
Right.
But I would say this, from this perspective, that using this approach, the environment is more competitive because we're always live.
Right.
We're looking at the environment, we're trying to complete task goals, and we're doing it with, if it's live, we're trying to be competitive with one another. Every high-level competitor competes.
Right.
That's fact.
Sure.
That's fact.
Right.
Drill, Eco Bro, Eco Network, whatever, I don't care. Every high-level competitor competes. Whether those high-level competitors tell themselves that it was the drilling that made them high-level, I don't think they really understand. And sometimes they can't understand because they don't have that change in perspective yet, or that potential change in perspective yet. That's why it worked. And they attribute that to their success. But I want to attribute their success to constantly competing. There was no high-level competitor that never competed. Do you know what I'm saying? You didn't do your first competition and win the Worlds at black belt or win the ADCC.
Right.
That's never happened and it will never happen. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need to compete. The reason my brother and I had some success, like there's arguments, like we learned how to compete. And this is why I advocate for kids to go to wrestling as opposed to starting jiu-jitsu. Because the purpose for wrestling is to compete. You compete 3 times a week at most.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You do that 4 months, you have 40, 50 matches in 4 months. And what do you know? Do you know what you see when you get guys that are open to doing jiu-jitsu coming from that background? You get fucking killers, you know? And I wasn't a high-level wrestler, but it taught me how to compete.
Sure.
The constraints placed upon me in that scenario made me compete.
Right.
Because the culture around it, I think, unpopular opinion, I think wrestling culture is way better than the current jiu-jitsu culture.
Sure.
If you watch the D1,
Right.
the D1 NCAs, it's just amazing.
Absolutely.
On the mat, off the mat, you know, and that's why I align with that more than the current state of the community.
Right.
But again, high-level competitors had to compete. You can never be a high-level competitor without competition. And I think that's a lot of that's where my brother and I had, it was like we had a decade of competition. Jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and in wrestling. That's the overall invariant thing for the thing we're after is like, you got to compete. And the thing with the competition, there's so many things that are involved with that. Is like, like the travel. Not only that, the story you have to, the narrative you have to tell yourself about how you won or lost. You know, getting over that, continuing to compete the next week. That plays a role, and that's what makes competitors competitors. It's not the approach. It's not what I'm saying is our approach may foster competitives more than the traditional approach. Because a lot of the traditional approach, there's a lot of passiveness. There's a lot of like going through the motions. That's not competitive.
Right.
A high level guy could have a competitive mindset, but that's like a constraint. That's like a constraint that you have to. That's not inherent to the practice. Imagine if we're drilling, right, and you're a non-competitive guy and I'm a competitive guy and I'm doing my leg drags, right?
Right.
My mindset is a constraint placed upon me, and that's going to transfer over to the performance environment, right? Do you know what I'm saying? But I had to tell myself I need to be competitive. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But as opposed to if we took it to our approach, not our approach, but like the constraints-led approach, ecological, whatever you want to call it, right? The non-traditional approach. I don't need to tell myself to be competitive, and you don't need to tell yourself to be non-competitive. Right. It's competitive inherently because it's live. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't think that's a perspective a lot of people see. Everybody's very binary in that sense. They're like, it's this way or that way, and that's why there's a lot of hate on our side. Like, oh, they're trying to change what's always worked. Yes, it's worked, but not in the way that you thought it did.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's hard to say that because the traditional approach never really had a shift in perspective.
Right.
And again, I'll say it again, and that's all we're trying to do. And that can only put our sport forward.
Right.
I don't see it putting our sport backward.
How much transfer do you feel from like say live training sparring to competition? Like,
It's because the live training and sparring highlights invariant tasks or task focus. That helps me in competition. That helps me stay focused in competition. You know, as opposed to, you know, if the competitor doesn't have an understanding of the task, they may get lost. They may get internal again. They may get in their head. But it really, like going back to my last statement, it's like, if you're going to compete, you gotta have to want to compete. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody that trains at standard competes.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And some of them never will, and we're not forcing them to, right? But if you want to, you have to want to compete to compete. Does that make sense? It's kind of like duh, right? But that's where that you get guys from like the traditional approach, probably a good competitor, because they're competitive, like naturally, inherently. That's it's in who they are, right? And like we got guys here that they don't compete in the competition mats, maybe because they don't want to, and that's fine. That's totally fine, right? But how it helps me in competition is like, if I ever lose focus, I have something to kind of grab to consciously. Is like, what is the task here? What is the invariant task? I know those because I trained them, right? And there's times where I know those and I still lost. It's because, you know, we're all human and we tend to lose focus, right? If I knew why I lost, if I knew why I was going to lose before the match, do you think I would have, you know what I'm saying? I would have prevented it. I would have done everything in my control to prevent that, right? But obviously, some matches don't go that way, right? Again, we're not trying to say this approach is going to make you unbeatable.
Right.
Just closer to that. You know what I'm saying? So it helps me a lot in competition, not only because we're going live, the conditioning aspect, and you know the stresses, our practice is more representative. That's the whole idea of representative design. It's more representative of the performance environment.
Right.
It you know, it fosters that competitiveness. Our conditioning's up, and you know the stresses we feel kind of in training are closer to the stresses you get in competition, but it'll never be the same because it's representative, right? And that's why I say competitors are only good competitors because they have competed. You know, think about everybody that's invited to ADCC, everybody that's qualified for ADCC. Do you think that was their first competition?
Sure.
Do you think trials was their first competition?
Right, not at all.
Or do you think those invite guys do you think their first competition gonna be ADCC?
Right.
For a fact, no. For a fact, no.
So I've always thought about it, and I think this is the way people traditionally think about it, that, you know, you train to develop the skill, and then you compete just to kind of like show where you're at.
Right. As a training tool almost, like to see your progress.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you almost think about it the opposite.
Okay.
That, like, I mean,
No, continue.
but the way you were just describing it sounds to me like you almost think of it as the competitions are helping your competitions, and the training is to facilitate that.
Your training is just increases your likelihood to do well in competition. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? Competition is different from training for a reason.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's, if you want to think about it, ADCC is 4 matches. We do 8 to 10 rounds every night.
Right.
But why am I fucking exhausted after 4 matches?
Right.
Tell me that. Essentially, it's the same work. What's going on in competition is not going on in training. Tell me what's going on. It's a rhetorical question, but like, tell me. You know, there's so much. There's expectations that the athlete has to like deal with and understand that they're not real, or they become attached to maybe where I don't know. That's what's happening in my head. There's this crowd. There's travel things. There's so much things more involved in competition. There's things involved in competition that's not involved in training, and vice versa. There's things in training that's not involved in competition. That's why they're separate, and that's why our practices are representative. All representation is a lie. right? But can we lie less?
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Can we lie less, and can it increase our chances in competition?
Right.
That's why, again, I'm going to say it again. That's why competitors become good competitors, because they compete a lot. They know how to deal with that. I feel the same way before every competition. It's never changed since I was 13 years old to now. It's just I'm expecting this. The nervous shits, the constant pissing, the jitters. I'm expecting that now. I'm expecting that now, so it doesn't. The effects. It's more that I'm getting more at peace with it, so I can go compete freely. That's something that people don't understand. That people think the first compete is like, does it ever get better? No, it doesn't ever get better. You just deal with it better. You find ways to deal with it better, and then the fact that at the end of the day, you still got to compete. I'll tell you this, one thing my original instructor always told his guys. He's like, right before you step on the mat, you got to piss, you got to take a shit, your girlfriend just broke up with you, you're going to lose your job, all this shit's happening, but guess what you got to do? You got to slap hands and go,
Sure.
That never changed. And you kind of picture, you kind of get an idea of where my brother and I kind of grew up, If we're gonna compete, we wanted to compete, and we're going to compete. That's it. Unless we're injured, we're not pulling out of nothing. I don't care, and I'm gonna compete as hard as I possibly can. I don't care, necessarily how I feel. At that point, right? And the only way I developed that was, I sound like a broken record. Yeah, competing. Yeah.
What is that like? People like the word self-talk. I don't know if you like that word, but what does that self-talk or your equivalent of that look like before a competition?
Well, that's
internal mental state.
Well, this is gonna take the viewers.
Okay.
That's under the assumption that there's a self.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now everybody's tuning out. Oh, Deandre's a whack, bro.
No.
But
Let's say internal state.
Okay, whatever language we want to use, it's all words. Like I said, I got so used to sometimes it's negative, right? Doubt. Sometimes it's positive, like I'm about to beat the brakes off these guys, right? Sometimes it's but then you just kind of sit down for a second, listen to the room, look at the view, look who's around you. That's really helpful for me. Look who's around you, look who's behind you, Look who's cheering your name, right? That just, you start to be aware of the environment, and then you realize those same thoughts that are coming in are no different from the sounds that you're hearing, from the sights that you're seeing, from the people around you. Those are no different. It's just all part of this experience, and it kind of liberates you from any positive or negative self-talk, man. Again, grappling ain't about talking, Grappling is about grappling. So it's not that I push those things away or invite positive things. I just, from my experience, I stopped seeing any difference between any what people would call the external environment to what is the internal environment. And then you could get into mind matter questions. People are
you should talk about this.
Yeah, people are.
You guys feel into it.
Yeah, I it's funny. The reason why I started exploring that whole side of things is because of this approach. One of the assumptions in ecological psychology is causality is nonlinear, right? It's like this web thing, right? And that led me to a lot of Eastern philosophy reading, and whether I wouldn't consider myself an expert on that, but it did help me just be at peace with things in a sense, because prior to me, I always needed a solution. You always needed a solution to be at peace. But when you realize there really isn't a solution, there is only what it is. You just say fuck it and then go compete. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Sure. That's if there was any internal dialogue, that's the internal dialogue I have. Right? Just go, bro. And me and my brother, and we support each other in that way. He's we just say simple things. Let's get it.
Lock in.
Lock in. Let's get it. That's it. That's it. That's all. We're not giving each other a pep talk like, bro, you're the best. You're the best one. You're the best one in this division.
Right.
We're not giving, or like, dude, your match, your last match looked shitty. We're not talking about that. We're like, every match, one match at a time. Let's get it. That's it. And we slap hands, and then I know my bro. If my bro is behind me, Matt's side, I know I'm good. You know.
Yeah.
And the same thing with him. You know. And you guys saw that at the last West Coast trials. That's the first person I go to after, because there's, like I said, you literally, this conversation, this is probably the most extensive interview I ever done, and maybe the last interview I will ever do, because like I said, I don't like talking essentially about jiu-jitsu. Like you're my guy, you're my team. I like talking to you, man. But I don't like a lot of people. I don't like talking to, right?
Sure.
Because I'm a grappler. I'm not a talker. You know. You don't see me in, you know, Greg's very, very articulate, and he's trying to spread our word out there. But I have never really been on those forums, those platforms.
Right.
But I'll let everybody know I'm in here doing the work,
Sure.
and I'm doing the work with a great team. And yeah, that's all it is. That's you know. These last recent years, the intensity of the training at standard has kind of led me that way. And the approach has led me to more aligning with in that direction. You know, people put a lot of labels on it, you know, like Eastern philosophy, Zen, Buddhism, whatever, right? But it doesn't really matter. What is there is always was there and will be there. It doesn't really matter what words you put; those are just words, you know. And it's something more visceral than, you know, intellectual or like explicit. You know, it's just something. It goes like, and I said this in my interview after trials. Like, it goes beyond words, man. Like, to put it into words is like an injustice to the actual thing. You know, it's like, you know, there's a moment where it's so salient. There's like nothing ever exists. Like right when I won, you know, I go to my brother. Nothing. Everything just stands. Like everything's still for like a second, and there's like, fuck, it's crazy. And you know, it's like, you know. But then we start talking about it like this, and you just realize it's just gone with the wind real quick.
Sure.
It's transient.
That was crazy.
Next one, yeah. Next one.
I was yelling.
I know, man. It was hype. I was hype, bro. I was hype. I'm not gonna lie, man. I was on Keith's back. Keith Corcoran, shout out to him. He's a legend, bro. I was on Keith's back, and I looked at the clock at 5 seconds. And I started crying while I was on his back because I was like, fuck. And I just looked at my bro, say, bro, we fucking did it. And then we're going to ADCC, and you know, just again, me putting words and painting a story like that, it's kind of fucking like tainting the experience. But there's only ever experience.
Right.
It's not even my experience or your experience. It's only ever experience. That's all it ever was and will be. And that's why I'm just grateful for the guys I'm with. That's why I am the way I am. That's why, you know, all the things that have gone into my understanding of the approach and what I want to provide and what I want to spread is all linked together. How I got here, it has nothing to do with me, you know. There has nothing to do with me. It was just lucky. I'm lucky. It's just, and I was equipped. And the work ethic that people think I developed, that was placed there by the environment I was put in. You know, if I didn't grow up where I grew up, who knows if that same idea of work ethic would have been in my thinking, right? Or you know, so it's not, you know, there's a lot of people that got put into where I am at now and where I will be going. But and it just doesn't stop at standard. It's the guys back home that watches my matches, supports me. There was a guys, my parents, you know, it goes. There's no, I ain't shit. I really ain't shit. I don't mean that in a modest way.
Right.
I really, and it's not in a mean way either to myself. It's just like,
What is the self? Right.
it ain't nothing, bro. It's just, the self that you think there is not what you think it was. Just like that drilling that you thought it was gonna work. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? but dude, if this ever releases, you might have to put it into blocks. Okay, I know we talked a lot because I don't think this is ever there's only one person that kind of knows that I'm like this, or maybe two, but yeah, this is, I don't know how this is gonna be received in the jiu-jitsu community. You know, there's a lot of polarizing figures on the internet within the jiu-jitsu community, and I just might have I don't know, shook it up a lot.
Sure,
but oh shit.
Everyone likes the other.
Yeah.
So that's good.
My goal is it's not even a goal, man. I say all no enemies, man. I have no enemies.
Sure.
Everybody I competed against, you know, however they act on the camera, I've actually competed against it. One of the most intimate things you could do with a person, right? You compete with them. Sure. You're grappling. The thing is like, and we talk afterwards. We all struggle the same things. Competitors struggle the same thing. We all couldn't wait. We're all trying to make it happen. You know, I show compassion to my competitors. It doesn't mean I'm gonna go any easier. I'm gonna do my best to win, but yeah, man, it's like I hope this may provide a breath of fresh air for the jiu-jitsu community, maybe, or they just like, oh, he's a loon.
I mean, I think one of the most striking things about trials was when Keith came up to us.
Yeah.
You know, and he was so nice.
Dude,
he was like,
we're all at
homies. He's like, yeah, I want to come train with you guys.
I'm saying, it's like
amazing, you know.
You know, the WWE-ifying of jiu-jitsu. All right, you're gonna make me rant now. All right, you're gonna make me rant. Like the jiu-jitsu, the community. You have to realize the community, the audience that watches jiu-jitsu has to be an educated audience, right? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So these guys that are watching are in some form done jiu-jitsu, trained it, or competed in it in some form, right? And then they watch jiu-jitsu, right? I truly don't think they care about the trash talk and this barking. Sure. And I know a lot of those guys are not actually like that, but they're kind of constrained to do that because of the promotion thing. Right. But think about it. The reason why the UFC could do that and the WWE could do that audience doesn't need to be educated. You could go to Buffalo Wild Wings during UFC 300. The guy's never walked on a mat in his life, and he's going to get hype because he saw someone get knocked out. You know, you don't need to be educated to see that. Right. But there are some educated MMA practitioners that see that and appreciate that in a different way. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's the same for jiu-jitsu, right? You're not going to get the trials on pay-per-view in Buffalo Wild Wing, and then we got two guys like hugging each other, and then the guy's like, yeah, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? Right. That's why I don't think the way the community's going, it will work. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I could be wrong. Sure. Maybe jiu-jitsu becomes a household thing and everybody knows about it eventually. Right. But just from the nature of it, even I don't watch jiu-jitsu. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. Unless it's my guys. Right. You know, unless I'm doing some sort of studying or something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna go tune in and watch jiu-jitsu for entertainment, at least. You know what I'm saying? Right. But you can't say that about the UFC. And you can't say that about like other like WWE, right?
Sure,
right.
For sure.
You see what I'm saying?
I mean, that's all of WWE.
Yeah, exactly. It's what it is. You know, not knocking WWE because when I was growing up, Friday Night SmackDown was in a medium-sized pizza was the shit. Dude, I like it. Right. I like the UFC.
Right.
I don't fight MMA.
Right.
You know,
It's nice to imagine like a more, whatever may work business wise.
Yeah.
It's nice to imagine a more like respectful way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what everybody kind of wants,
Yeah.
It's, that's what I try to promote.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm trying to promote, it's just how I was brought up. It's just, I know, man, it's just the comment culture,
Sure.
that's why, I don't have my Instagram. I have an Instagram account, but I don't have it on my phone.
Right.
I check it like an email for like inquiries about
Sure.
competition. I have YouTube because there's some long form content in there that's pretty useful. But yeah, that's all I have. And I need to do a better job at my social media thing in order for me to spread out my the things I want to spread, the things I believe will add value. But I think people overstep the function of social media a little bit, and they use it for what it was not intended to be used for.
Right.
The idea of it was pretty useful. You connect to people that you don't see on a regular. Right. And you connect for example, my family, my parents' families are in the other side of the world. They're in the Philippines. They could connect through that, and that was the intention.
Right.
But we're far from that now. Right. I don't think people even realize that's what it's for.
Right. Right.
It's there's a lot of superimposed pictures on the original image, and I guess we've kind of lost the true image, what it was.
Sure.
But yeah, man, it's this conversation is like we've gone deep, bro. We got. I don't think everybody in this room knows pretty much the whole story now. But now
There's a lot to a person.
Yeah. But no, absolutely. But yeah, it's crazy that I not think about like the conversation we just had. It's like I think about like, dang, I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old. I've been thinking like this for 15 years, and all those 15 years experience kind of developed into what this is, what people are going to hear right here. My upbringing, how I got here, how the reason I align with the things I align with, it's pretty cool. I think it's freaking cool.
Yeah.
That's just it's a good time right now. It's always really going to be a good time, right? You just find a way to justify why it's a good time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I think you've been very modest with like how much you do, and how easy it is, but like seeing the stuff you do, like,
Yeah.
I guess here's the thing, like, we can find ways to make it feel easier, and this is where, like, in some of the Zen philosophy, I don't know if you've heard of this, like, effortless thing, right?
The effortless effort, man.
Right, yeah, but like this idea of like, we can do things in a certain way where it doesn't take effort to put in effort, right?
Right.
And so it sounds like you've done a lot of that.
Right.
And there's a lot of, I think, things that are uncomfortable and hard.
Right.
That you've done an amazing job of like slowing with.
Right. I mean, you say that I'm modest in the way I kind of describe it, but I don't think I am, man. I don't think I'm being modest. It's like whatever conditions needed me to get here,
right,
were already gonna happen.
Sure.
And I'm along for the ride, I guess.
Yeah.
And the experience, and then there's gonna be bright hues and dark shades through the experience,
Sure.
but you know, there's something fundamental there that, you know, again, the moment I try to, it can't be explained. You know?
There's something I love. It's just like what you said about representativeness.
Right.
It's like, it's all lie. But like,
Yeah.
how can we lie less?
Yeah.
How can we, and especially like the last few years, like I've gotten more into writing.
Yeah.
You know, for YouTube videos and all this stuff. And, you know, the rest of my life, I was terrible at writing. I hated it. You know,
Yeah.
never liked it. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I like math and like, give me concrete answers that I can prove. You
Right.
know?
Right.
But one of the things that I've started to really enjoy about writing is like, man, how can I represent this thing as accurately as possible?
Right. Right.
You know, there's such an art to it.
Lie less. Right. Yeah. Lie less. Right.
Right? Because it's never.
It can never be the real thing.
It's never the real thing.
And the moment you say it's a real thing, it's not. Yeah.
And the more detailed you try to get, you're like, okay, well, it's like this, except when that happens, and then, but if this happens, it changes it this way, and now you've got this long thing.
And I mean, that's
balance.
because it's hard to get. Oh, like again, if we think linearly, causality, we think we could do things like that. We could do things in like we could get so precise,
right?
So precise that it's almost it. But the harder we try, the more effort you put in, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? That's one thing I had to get over. Sometimes it's not about hard charging all the time, because when I came up, the more work I put, that means I will do better, you know? And I misconstrue that with physical work, right? But it doesn't mean I don't put, so like I said, I misconstrue that with physical work, but that effortfulness doesn't necessarily always have to go into the physical work. Let's say, for example, when I say, let me put that same effort into educating myself on sleep, on nutrition, on when I understood that perspective, I could still put that same attention, because that's all we really have.
Right.
The same attention and focus into something that's gonna, you know, the body's a material thing. It's there's finite resources there, right? It's gonna run out. But if I could put my attention somewhere else, but it's still always with the intention of trying to get better at this thing I choose, the thing I'm practicing, it always, I guess that's where that effortlessness that you see in the mat comes in. You know, again, it's hard to describe, but I think the intention of however that intention arose in me to get better at this practice, at this craft, that's always been the thing that's always been the driving force to do whatever I did. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe early on it was go hard, put more work in, put more laps in, put more weight on the bar, put more rounds in.
Right.
You know, when you start to realize, you know, I'm a hard charger, I could do anything I put my mind to, and then you do that enough, and then you create the physiological state of, how come I can't do it anymore, man? How come I can't do that? How come I can't put the 10 rounds I can only do 8 now?
Right.
What's going on? Am I getting worse? And you have this battle, right? You have this thing, and this is where I started kind of exploring that. This is a little more on a personal side of me. It's like when I came here, we're doing 10-minute rounds every night, right? And at first, for a year, that felt good. 2 years, that felt good. You know, there was that point. At a certain point, it becomes so salient. Like, why can't I do it? Is it my nutrition? Is it my sleep? You know, and it's never really. It's just where I was putting my attention, right? My intention never changed. And we talk about this in the practice sense, but this is me thinking like off the mat. Like, my intention is to use this practice to develop as much skill as I can, and then eventually add value to other people that want to use this practice.
Right.
That has always been the intention. And for a while, my attention has only been into the physical work, right? The physical work, the lifting, the conditioning, what I realized, I neglected this whole other side of things that I've never really explored, you know. And when you start putting that same intention and shifting your attention to those like other things like that, keeping that same intention, you know, what I noticed, I got a lot more done with less work. It's not to say you don't put in work. It's not to say you don't put in work. I did that.
Right.
You know, I did that and failed. I did a lot of trial and error with training volume and like that. But I truly think all that really matters is an intention and genuinely holding that intention for however long period of time. Your attention shifts, right? The attention shifts, and sometimes we can't even control that, you know? But the thing is, like, that's where I put when I started feeling the detriments of training like how I was training, right? Though that my attention, it was there was a signal there, some sort of signal, I don't know, that made my attention start searching in a different way, so I could fulfill my intention. I train less now. I sleep more. I spend time with my family. You know, I spend time with my fiance. I spend time, you know, and I like training still, you know. But the thing is, like, there's a whole nother. If my intention was to get as good as I can, and this potentially could make me good, just like how I adopted this approach, why not do it? You know, and that's the thing that sets me over the line. Is like, I'm gonna try it, and if it doesn't work and I feel it doesn't work, I can always abandon it. You know, but the thing is, like, that's where I'm at now, and that may change. I may change, especially coming up to this preparing for ADC. I may need to up the volume.
Sure.
And then from there, I'll see how that what that creates. Explore again, adjust, continue, and repeat. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Do the same thing. Then once ADCC happens, I don't know what's gonna happen after that.
Sure.
I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. You know, just literally. If I'm still conscious, the intention should still be there.
Sure.
And we're going.
Right.
And then wherever my attention shifts, I'll let it shift there. But as long as that intention is there, that's all that matters to me.
Right.
To me, that I think is there.
Right.
Yeah, right. But
Right.
this is so hard to put into words.
Yeah.
But it's actually like warm and delightful to talk about it like this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, all this stuff really I share with my brother, and it's in my thoughts. You know, or it's where my attention has gone to. But it's good to have people like in the gym that practice the same practice, kind of, you know, not even understand. They don't even have to understand it, but just to have a ear, you know. Absolutely. It's good. But yeah, there's a lot to Deandre, and there's a lot to the Corbe brothers that people don't really know about because we're relatively quiet, you know.
Right.
In this format, I'm a little more, you know, in a more personal format. I'm a little more articulate, comfortable, you know. I keep it clean when I'm in the public. I keep it clean. I keep it respectful, because no one needs any more stress in their life.
Sure.
You know, not well. There's already too much animosity.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you have like a formal somatic practice?
Like a meditation practice.
Meditation, any of that?
I guess you would call it formal. I'm not very good at sticking with it on a daily.
Sure.
I probably should explore that a little more. But what was my first introduction to it? I think it was. Where's my first introduction to it? I can't even put my finger on it when I first started it. I mean, it was one of those. It was definitely in a time where I was getting burnt out, you know, and you know, I'm starting to have these, like, I'm starting to question, like, that same intention, I would say that's always been. So I started questioning. I was like, why is it not the same? And for a little bit, I went to, first thing you see on YouTube, right? Alan Watts.
Yeah.
Guy's freaking cool. Everything he says is like, it's paradoxical and like, but you kind of listen to it for a little bit and it's like, you know what, that makes sense.
Right.
It's like, not in the way I think it makes sense, but you can't, you know what I'm saying? And then I got a book because I like reading. I developed that habit when I started training here. You know, Alan Watts, it was like an introduction to Zen Buddhism or something like that. And it's like, you know, and then one of the things I liked was like that made me like, that was really enjoyable for me, like just reading koans. And it was like, I was just like, it was literally, I would just laugh at the pages, like almost hysterically. It's like, yo, they're actually right, you know. It's like, but it doesn't make sense, but it's right, you know. It's like, but then I started getting into like meditation. It's like, all right, it's hard to start that if you don't have like, there's some schools here, and I don't. It's kind of intimidating to like walk into this school. I don't know if they're quacks or not, or you know what I'm saying. So I listened to a little tangent, but I promise it'll tie back in. My strength coach, Rob Wilson, located back home where I'm from. He is actually friends with Andrew Huberman, right? And I actually did a breath seminar, a breath control seminar with Rob, and Andrew Huberman was there. And at the time, I didn't know who he was. But then around COVID, you know, the Huberman Lab podcast came out, and I was like, "Yo, Gav, this is the same guy that works with Rob." And it's like, and then we started listening to it, and it's like, it was actually not polarizing opinion on a social media platform. It's like, oh, this is pretty cool. He has credentials around him. You know, I listen to him every week. You know, and it's a good podcast. There's a lot of useful, applicable things. It's cool that I have a connection to him, like through Rob. I never really talked to him, but it's cool that I had that.
Right.
But one of his things, like he had Sam Harris on, right? You know, Sam Harris, he's I guess you call him American philosopher. He's American. He's a philosopher. Call him that, whatever you want to label him. And you know, he has this whole thing about his free will. And I was like, that's my introduction. And I was like, again, just like how I was with this approach, like, okay, no way, I have control, bro. Right. And then when I said that, and there's moments where I'm deep in training, like I'm in that dark, you know what I'm saying? And you say, I have control, and then you realize like you're lying to yourself. Right. Maybe that was the point where I just like, oh, let me open this book. Let me see. Maybe I need a perspective change. Yeah. Right. I'm not saying it's the truth. Right. I'm not saying anything is the truth. I'm saying maybe I just need a perspective change. Right. And I read the book. It leads me to the app. Right. There is a paywall around it. I found that it added value to me, so I paid it, right? Sure. I paid the pay, and because it's tailored to the environment we're in, you're always using your phone. Why not use, instead of opening the IG and scrolling, why don't you hit the Waking Up app for a little bit? I'm not sponsored by Waking Up or anything like that. Right. I just found it valuable and useful to me. I clicked the thing, you know, and it helps me. The introductory course just helps me getting used to that, and that's what I needed. You know, I don't necessarily need a guided thing anymore. It's helpful, right? It's just like your jiu-jitsu practice, right? It's helpful to have guidance, but you could also do it without guidance. You could just be questioning, you know, have some inquiry, and that's what led. That led me to like what most people call formal meditation practice. And you know, I use that sometimes I use it when I feel I need it. Sometimes some days I'm on it every day. Sometimes I don't use it and I just take a couple breaths, just sitting there, not very long.
Yeah.
Just sit. And then there's some days that I use, one of the things I use is like the NSDR, the non-sleep deep rest, yoga nidra. That helps me, like, especially when the training gets very, very, like high volume.
Right.
It's good little in between training session, get me ready, afternoon after work, eat something, do some NSDR or yoga nidra practice, and feel great. My first introduction to yoga nidra wasn't through any of these apps. It was through my strength coach Rob Wilson, and I remember the first time I did it, we were on the mat, and you're kind of like typical yoga nidra. You start going in, going out, and listening to everything for that specific protocol they had. And I remember opening my eyes after that, and it's like, I just felt like I got a full 10 hours of sleep.
Sure.
Let's go.
Right.
Let's go hit the day. It's like almost a lightness to you after that. That's the best way I could describe it. It's a lightness to you, like you accumulated all this whatever from training. You're heavy, and you're like, and then you see me at the end of every practice, I'm laying down. It's not because I'm tired. I'm trying to like just down regulate. And the cool thing about walking here, I could further down regulate, walk, spend time with Alex next to me, and we go walk, and then it's a good little treat, reward, almost like dessert after training. It just like feels whatever stress you like, physical, mental, whatever, if you could separate those things at all, right? Stress that you were kind of feeling, kind of like puts it in another perspective. It's like, we're okay here. Let's go to sleep. Let's get some real rest. And then if we're blessed enough and fortunate enough to open our eyes again, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Yeah. And experience the same thing all over again. And then continue. But yeah.
Last thing.
Yeah.
What would it mean to you to win ADCC? I don't want to load that.
No.
It has to mean anything.
I know. I'm thinking. I mean, it'll be good for my family.
Yeah.
It'll be good for my future family. It'll be good for my team. Yeah. It'll put, like some sort of a credential around the approach that we're using.
Yeah.
To me personally, it's 4 matches, man.
Yeah.
I do 4 rounds every night. But no, it'll be, I think that's what it would mean to me. That's the biggest, most important thing, is good for my family, my future family, my team, the future of this team, my brothers, because, I couldn't even got there without the training with my brother. It's big for the team where I'm from. It'll be, I think it can help, a win in ADC can help those guys that support me, that have supported me. And if I got to be, I'm in the position to do that, it's just kind of drives, it just enhances and boosts that intention I always have had, was, get as skilled as possible through this craft, and make sure when I'm in the position to add value to the people that are also participating in this craft. And that's what it will kind of mean to me. It's I'm sure it's going to be, if that becomes the outcome, I'm sure it will be life-changing for me. But I think it will be a more so just relief from, not saying that will be the last one, but there's we put that ADCC, the title, the whole thing, it's loaded with the expectations of it as well. So it's not that we ignore those things. It's just, it's gonna it'll make a big splash. It'll make a lot of noise, and I think it will only be good for the people that's have supported me, and it brightens the future a little bit for the people I care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any matchups you're like looking forward to?
Okay. I never look at brackets, guys. I never look at brackets. I've learned that's for me personally. I never look at brackets, and it just helps me because you know that I literally the thing about ADCs I know is a 16-man bracket, so I know there's 4 fights or 4 matches, and in like other tournaments, sometimes I don't even know the number of competitors, so I literally just do 1 match at a time until Greg tells me that was the final, and I said, okay, let's go eat some dinner. Yeah, basically.
Get some tacos.
Yeah, tacos. Well, you were there, right?
That was great.
Dude, those tacos at Vegas. Shoot, man.
Dude, I was skeptical when we got there, but
The setup was clean. Like I like the setup. Like the different proteins or the different meats. You just line it up, and then you get whatever format you want for that protein, and then you just take it back.
it was super fresh.
It was genius, man. He cooked it right in front of you, man. It was good, man. That was amazing. We had to go back there.
Yeah.
I was bummed that the Whole Foods was closed, but Whole Foods. I eat at your establishment on a daily basis. Everywhere I travel to, I find the nearest Whole Foods. So if I win ADCC,
Whole Foods sponsored.
hook me up. You won't be disappointed.
Do you wanted to, after winning trials, you wanted to celebrate by going to Whole Foods?
Yeah, dude, we were eating there all weekend. We were eating there all weekend, and this is why it's good. You know why? This is why it's good, because you don't gotta wait for a table. You literally get your food, you pay for it, and eat. If you want to get more, you do it again. You do it. It's clean food.
Yeah.
You know. You can, if you want to get dessert, you go to the ice cream store, get a pint of Ben and Jerry's. Dude, you get. Y'all are tired. Y'all want to go and sit down and get an order and then wait for our food, and we're starving and we're eating it. We're on a 3rd bread basket by now. We're like, come on, bro. And it's like, no, I want to go to Whole Foods, get the one I want. If I'm hungry again, then go back. You know? Pro tip: go to Whole Foods after a tournament. Get your food right away and get more if you want.
What do you get there usually?
I usually get so whatever they have. If there's anything,
The hot bar.
The hot bar. I usually get a kombucha and then a yogurt, small yogurt, and then I go to hot bar, get whatever is there, whatever protein's there. If not, I usually go to the prepared food. Like they have get a London broil, and then get some potatoes. They got the microwave in in the sitting section. Just nuke that thing, and then, dude, you can't get any better than that. And then go to the ice cream, go to the pastry section, get a cookie, and get an ice, make it.
Life is good,
dude. and you have a lot of control over it. You can make your own thing. You could get exactly what you want.
Right.
You go to a fancy restaurant or get a wait, and you don't know what they're putting in there. I mean, you really don't know what they're putting in the hot bar either, but they say that they have that little label and say, there you go, yeah. There's no nutrition facts in restaurants usually.
Cool, man. Any other things that you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug, mention?
I'm Deandre_Corbe at Instagram. Follow me. I won't follow you back. Not anything against you guys. I just don't hang out there. I'm grateful for Standard Jiu-Jitsu. Everybody involved at Standard Jiu-Jitsu. Greg has really, say what you want about him. People have certain views on him. He cares for his guys, and that's all he cares about. This is literally his life, and a lot of coaches can learn a lot from that, and if you're not like that, if you're not about caring for your guys and their development, you shouldn't really hold the title of coach. I want to say thank you to, I'm grateful, and I want to say thank you to Coastal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my gym I grew up in. Nestor Bayat, James Gamble were my original instructors. They gave me the freedom and support to really make this practice my own practice and do it the way I wanted to do it without having to be exposed to any of the, a lot of the detriments of like being a young competitor. I'm truly grateful for them, and I can't really express it in words, like the magnitude of gratefulness I have towards them. It's really, it's a debt I can never really repay, but I hope to show, when I am in a position to teach, I hope to, provide those same principles of being a good human, good person to whoever I'm teaching, not just skilled players. We will use the practice and the skill development as a vehicle to make better humans, better people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Ah. God, man, that was fun.
If you want to see another interview with D after ADCC, let us know in the comments, because this is a tip of the iceberg for what he has to share. And don't miss my interview with Greg Souders, the man who coached D to this incredible level, and the upcoming full monster video / documentary on this channel about ecological dynamics and BJJ.